West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. And I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Today's tax day, and we are talking money on the show today. DJ Summers coming up here in just a second, Director of Communications and Research Operations with the Common Sense Institute. Current projections for the budget deficit here in Colorado are $1.2 billion. He and the Common Sense Institute saying that's far too optimistic. And if economic conditions continue to weaken here in Colorado, it could get a lot worse. Not going to want to miss this conversation coming up here in just about 10 minutes with DJ Summers. Great guy. 7 o'clock hour, Mike Boyle is going to join us. We're going to preview our live broadcast tomorrow. Billy and I doing an IHOP live broadcast. That means the whole show, the whole production, camera 1, camera 2, computer screens, radio, broadcast material, all that stuff gets put together at an IHOP restaurant in Belmar, Lakewood, Colorado, right off of Wadsworth there. And you get to see all of it. You get to be a part of it for as long as you want, and even possibly be on the show as folks swing by. Last time Joe from Arvada was on.
Yeah, we do interview people when they hang out with us. We'll spend some time with you off there. But most importantly, Mike Boyle is going to be there. And also, we're hooking you up with breakfast for $7.10.
Boom, baby.
Yeah, I mean, this is eggs,
That's good
hash
for
browns,
all of us
bacon.
that are dropping those checks off today.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, they'll save you some cash tomorrow. So they'll give you the big breakfast, $7.10. It's the best deal you are going to find in town. So, yes, as Jeff said, after you've written Uncle Sam the check, we're going to catch you a deal tomorrow, and it'll be the best and hottest, freshest, most delicious, if that's a word, breakfast as you can find that morning. It's going to be a better deal than anything else, anywhere else you can stop for in the area. So come on out and see us. We're in Lakewood. It'll be the Belmar IHOP. It's basically Wadsworth and Alameda, more or less, right across from the Belmar Shopping Center. You can put it in the Google machine and go that way. If you just put IHOP Belmar, it'll find you.
Or pull out your atlas or MapQuest.
Yes, exactly.
And print out 5 sheets.
Yes. Oh, that is funny. I remember that the first time with MapQuest. Yes.
7 o'clock hour, Arthur Alley's going to join us. He's the president of the Timothy Plan, all about some of the crazy areas your money's going to with the IRS and federal spending and just some of the stupid projects that are out there. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. David McGarry, research director of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, going to give us insight on how DOGE is reforming the IRS. How things may be changing moving forward. And then $9 billion being cut, including over $1 billion for PBS and NPR. We'll get into that in the 9 o'clock hour. So it's all money, all the show talking about where your dollars are flying out of your wallet to the federal and state government today. So don't miss this conversation. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.33 and clear in Denver. Terrific Tuesday. Good morning. Expecting a high of 73 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, it is April 15th, and that means it's tax day. If you're behind, you need to file for an extension before the end of the day, and that'll give you 6 months to file. As far as the economy goes and the market, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says it's not just about the tariffs, it's about deregulation and taxes.
It's a mini, the leg stool, and I would try to think about, what's happening. The tariff sequencing was always going to be first. The tax bill's going very well, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how quickly that's moving along. And then deregulation from our area on the financial side and in the rest of the economy, that takes a little longer, but that will start kicking in September, October, in the fall, and those are going to be very powerful. Do
you have any questions, please?
President Trump.
No, let's not start
Mr.
with
President.
CNN because they're just so
Mr. President.
wrong.
Fun at the Oval Office on Monday. I'm sure you've seen and heard this, but let's do it again. With the media, President McGarry of El Salvador says the MS-13 gang member who's a citizen of his country and in prison will not be returned to the U.S. on his watch, even though CNN's Caitlin Collins could not understand common sense.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to be suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
They'd love to have a criminal, released into our country.
There's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
Agree. Bukele very impressed with the U.S. sealing the southern border, which led to more entertainment.
99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get up at the fake news, like CNN. CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
So then Dana Bash on CNN.
For the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years.
Oh, wow. So that means you don't hate the country. DJT says the suspect in the arson attack at the Pennsylvania governor's residence last weekend was, in his word, probably just a whack job. Nailed it. Police chase on I-25 last night near the Meade exit. The suspect driver fled on foot after being chased by Larimer County sheriffs in his car. And then he had to pull over after he got a flat tire. He got out, ran. He was armed. The suspect ran into oncoming traffic after jumping the median and was hit, suffered serious injuries. One other person was injured after the wreck. They were able to open that area of the section of the highway a couple of hours later. Denver Public Schools is the first in the state to offer K-12 students an opportunity to graduate with an Associate of Applied Science degree. Governor Polis signed a new law Thursday authorizing Emily Griffith Technical College to issue the degree. DPS Superintendent Dr. Alex Marrero said on Monday it will afford students to enter into fast-growing industries, gain economic mobility, and other opportunities. Colorado Springs Airport will debut its first international flight this summer. An airport spokesperson says that the first flight is to Cancun, an $8.4 million project built out a new federal inspection station. It has the capacity to process one flight per hour. The Keystone Oil Pipeline is running again. The pipeline operator stopped the system last week. You'll remember that after a spill in North Dakota, but restarted things on Monday. An estimated 147,000 gallons of oil were spilled in the incident. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Nuggets open the playoffs on Saturday against the Clippers at Ball Arena. Rockies lose Game 1 at the Dodgers last night, 5-3. 32 in Thornton, 31 in Centennial, 33 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Tax Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast in the Denver metro. A lot of sunshine today. Afternoon highs will hit the lower 70s. Going to be mild tonight under fair skies as well. Keeping it dry on the plains. Lows will be middle and upper 40s. Wednesday, we're going to hit the mid-70s. Daytime sunshine, but some clouds will build later in the afternoon. Wednesday night, a few light showers, otherwise partly cloudy. Lows upper 40s. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, let's kick off our money episode with a little dash of cold water coming from the Common Sense Institute. Current projections for a $1.2 billion budget hole here in Colorado are too optimistic, especially if economic conditions continue to weaken. The author of this study and the Director of Communications and Research Operations at the Common Sense Institute joins us, DJ Summers. Good morning, DJ. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, it's a big day. It's tax day. Everyone's looking at not only state and federal budgets, but their own personal budgets as well. You found some interesting things diving into our budget. Give us some insight.
The long and short of it here is that, the picture of our budget shortfall that's been in the news over the last couple of weeks might be a little bit too rosy. And if things don't really pan out as much as the Joint Budget Committee thinks they will over the next couple of years, we could be looking at a budget shortfall of billions of dollars more over the next couple of years.
Well, this must be a tax problem and a revenue problem, right, DJ Summers? It couldn't possibly be a spending problem. What did you find in your research?
I mean, you could say that your own personal household finances don't boil down to some kind of a spending problem if it makes you feel better. But at the end of the day, if you're paying 3 times more for a particular utility, or you're paying 3 times more for your mortgage over the last 15 years, eventually you're going to have to admit that a lot of it is just a spending problem. And that is what has happened in Colorado. Over the last 15 years, we've really increased spending. I mean, our spending has jumped up compared with in population and inflation too. Healthcare spending alone has more than quadrupled since 2010 from the general fund, and it's almost quadrupled from spending from all sources. Education is a similar story. Spending more than triple from the general fund, more than double from all sources. So it really does start to stack up. We're spending a lot more than we used to, double what we were just 15 years ago, way past the point that would be justified by just population growth and inflation.
We're talking with DJ Summers, Director of Communications and Research Operations for the Common Sense Institute. Let's get some of these stats from your report here. From 2010 through 2025, general fund spending rose 134%. Over that same period, spending from all sources rose 127%. In contrast, population growth was 19%, and reported consumer inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, was 48%. Now, I thought Tabor would keep a lot of this in check. So how are we getting this type of general fund spending increase in light of Tabor?
As much as it is about revenue, Tabor is about how much the state of Colorado is allowed to take in taxes, not much about how it's supposed to spend in taxes. Obviously, the two are related, but there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. There's a lot of different factors that play into it. One of them is that we have a lot of revenues that come in that are Tabor exempt. Since we passed Tabor, we've had a lot of fees come in that have been exempt from Tabor over the past little while, and we have more and more as the years go on. The number of fee enterprises that are exempt from Tabor goes up and up and up. It grows almost exponentially from year to year. It doubles, and then it doubles on top of that, and then it doubles on top of that. So the state has generated a lot of funds that are exempt from Tabor because they'll create new fees in order to generate tax revenue, essentially, but it's classified as fee enterprises, so it's not held to those Tabor strictures. So we're able to generate a little bit more funding there than Tabor, I think, maybe intended when it was passed.
And I go back to that old Shakespearean quote, a rose by any other name smells just as sweet. A tax by any other name stinks just as much. You could call it a fee. We're talking with DJ Summers. He's the Director of Communications and Research Operations with the Common Sense Institute. Let's talk about the big three. I'm looking at page 10 of your report. And by the way, I'll link to this report at x.com/Jeff Hunt, or go to the Common Sense Institute website. They're doing incredible work there. In fact, some of the most comprehensive research in the state of Colorado on all sorts of different policy issues. Their website is commonsenseinstituteus.org, commonsenseinstituteus.org. You can see they represent Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Oregon, Indiana, Utah. Lots of great nonpartisan, factual research, which is what makes them so valuable, especially to lawmakers here in the state. So let's get into the big three. Overall spending increases has been driven by education, higher education, and healthcare, you say. These categories, known as the big three because they will soon surpass 70% of all spending and more than 75% of general fund spending. Where is this money going in? Well, let's start with healthcare. Is it Medicaid? Is it Medicare? How is it getting so expensive?
Just put your finger on it. A lot of that just went into Medicaid. That was basically what happened since, we're tracking this over the last 15 years, like since 2010. If you remember, there was a lot of talk about health care back in 2010. There was a lot of talk about how much reimbursement rates were going to go up and about how much money each state was going to get. And a lot of our funding increased since then. That's a huge, huge portion of this. Unfortunately, we weren't able to track it just at the program level because that would take us more analysts than we've got on staff. But that's generally the gist of it with healthcare. A huge amount of that went towards those Medicaid cost increases. As far as education goes, finding ways to dice that up at the higher education level and at the K through 12 education level, that would be the same program-specific dive. We do have previous research with K through 12 funding particularly that shows how much of that went to administrative positions rather than just to the schools itself, rather than to the classroom. We've gotten a lot of that over the last couple of years. We continue putting more funding into K through 12, but it doesn't make its way down into teacher salaries. The growth in administrative positions in all of our K through 12 schools has grown and grown, even as our student body declines, even as there are fewer students enrolled in those schools. So you look at all of these, you look at higher education, you look at education K through 12, you look at healthcare spending, and you just see this trend everywhere of spending over the last 15 years, doubling, tripling, in some cases more than quadrupling, and it does give you that sense that this is maybe an output feature for the state budget more than it is just a feature of revenue.
We're talking with DJ Summers of the Common Sense Institute. Now, DJ, it seems like you all are doing the work of like a Doge for Colorado, but you don't nearly have the manpower that the Elon Musk and the Donald Trump and the federal government can bring all to this. But you're actually doing a good deep dive on where some of this money is going. And lawmakers complain that there's not enough. We need Tabor and repealed because it's stopping the state government from being able to spend the money that they believe is necessary. Do you get a sense in your research here that the problem is we just don't have enough money in this state, or is the problem that we're just not getting results with the money that we're spending in this state?
What we analyze at the Common Sense Institute is whether or not the state of Colorado is getting the right bang for its buck for any given government program, for any given government administration. And, a lot of these things are necessary. Education, higher education, healthcare, we acknowledge that there's some spending that needs to happen there. But, again, when you account for that population growth and that inflation growth, and we're spending so much more than we used to just compared to those two things, it starts to make it look like something else. It starts to make it look like, well, maybe we're not putting money in quite the right places. And there's a lot of previous research that we've done that justifies that. We have our competitiveness index. Our competitiveness index measures how Colorado looks for free market enterprise relative to other states. And one of the big reasons that we are falling in those ratings, in our competitiveness index ratings, is that we're growing in the state budget per capita, and that's not a good look. That's indeed a very bad look, especially in places where we might want to be spending more, but either the spending isn't going to the right program, or maybe the spending just isn't yielding the right results. We've dropped a lot in public safety in our competitiveness index, again in that state budget, and it starts to stack up. It starts to make you wonder whether or not the spending that's happening at the state level is operating efficiently.
That's DJ Summers you're hearing. He's the Director of Communications and Research Operations for the Common Sense Institute here in Colorado. By the way, if you want to read the report, go to commonsenseinstituteus.org, commonsenseinstituteus.org. DJ, a lot of our listeners care about public safety and roads. When you're looking at our spending, and you mentioned the big three there and the increase that's taken place among healthcare and education, how about public safety and roads? Is the state spending more there?
We do know that the state is going to make some cuts for transportation. They're going to make a couple of cuts to some of the electronic, EV charging stations, that kind of thing, some of the multimodal transit options that they've been putting more money into over the last 15 years. We recently released a report on just that transportation dollars used to go towards road maintenance. They were for highways in particular. And a lot of the funds that used to be dedicated towards highway build-out, highway maintenance, have ended up going towards EV charging stations and bike lanes and mass transit and multimodal transit. They've ended up getting kind of nudged over to the side there. And one of the things that's happened in the meantime is Colorado's highway conditions have deteriorated to become some of the nation's worst, according to a Reason Foundation study. We're 45th and 46th for our rural and urban highway conditions. So that's just one perfect snapshot of how it is that if spending doesn't go towards the right places, it can really stack up over time. It can really yield some negative results that make it look like maybe there's a revenue feature, but might just be a problem of where the spending is going and how it's being used.
That's DJ Summers, Director of Communications and Research Operations of the Common Sense Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live. He's talking with us about how our $1 billion plus budget deficit here in Colorado might actually be worse over the next couple of years based on spending choices being made under the Golden Dome. And that's kind of where I was going. The idea when you talk about getting the biggest bang for your buck, it sounds like in some cases this is more of a priority issue, that the priorities set by the Democrats aren't necessarily taking care of things like rural roads, because oddly enough, there's not a lot of Democrats in the rural areas voting for them. So is this really, as you just talked about, rather than too much spending, just spending it poorly? Is the state taking in enough revenue, but we unfortunately are going out there and like a teenager, we're buying liquor and going to the bars on our credit card, and we're spending things, really, really dumb. We're buying stuff in video games rather than making sure that our rent is taken care of. Is this really just a spending priorities issue?
I think a lot of that is just a spending issue where we're spending at 3-4 times the rate, depending on if you're looking at a general fund or all funds. We're spending triple, quadruple what we spent 15 years ago. And that isn't explained by population and inflation. You've got to have some kind of result for that on the back end. And there is a lot of disagreement about what those results might be. Certain people might want to have a different set of results for transportation or for public safety. That measurement is different according to what the priorities are. We do know what the impacts are on the back end, though. We do know that deteriorating road conditions, that's a feature now of Colorado. Again, the public safety, we have really declined in our public safety ranking. Most recent FBI stats had us at the 4th highest property crime rate, the 8th highest violent crime rate, or the 8th highest violent crime rate. Those do stack up. Those have gotten worse over time. Those ratings for roads or for public safety. Our schools are performing less well than they used to as well. Student scores have been dropping. So at some point, given all of this new spending, all of this outpour from state funding towards certain programs, you've got to wonder, at what point is it working?
DJ Summers, Director of Communications Research Operations of the Common Sense Institute. How much of this budget overflow and largesse is somewhat due to just economic conditions? And what I'm looking at is if we go back to 2010, the people in our audience are paying more for food. They're paying more for rent. Everything else in their life has gotten more expensive. How much of the stuff that we're seeing in the rise of the budget is just on the fact that stuff is getting more expensive and we've chosen to spend that money poorly?
again, some of this can be explained by inflation. Inflation has gone up since then, so has population growth, but spending has far outpaced inflation. It isn't that the government here is spending the same amount for the exact same services, but with newly inflated prices. When we're talking about this spending tripling, quadrupling in certain cases, whether it's healthcare or whether it's education, it's not inflation alone that explains all of that. Inflation alone, that would be a really dismal circumstances if our inflation had tripled or quadrupled over the last 15 years. That's not the case. So some of it is baked in there, but that isn't the thing that explains it most. Economic conditions, like you said, are really what explain this budget outlook gap a little bit better. When we're talking about this budget gap that we're projecting, deteriorating economic conditions are the things that we look at hardest.
That is DJ Summers, Director of Communications and Research Operations at the Common Sense Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live. I've got one more question for you, DJ. May not be a fair question, but I just find it interesting. Given that President Donald Trump right now thinks that we need to protect America by raising large tariffs, and that's going to create a whole new American golden age, could Colorado create a Colorado golden age by putting tariffs on stuff that is imported from other states? Is that the way to bring up the largesse and to make sure that we have more than enough tax money, is simply enact tariffs? Is that the solution? Your thoughts?
We've got no studies examining this whatsoever. So I wish I had something sexier to say for you, but unfortunately I have not analyzed this, and I don't want to put my size 10s right in my mouth.
That is totally fair. That is totally fair, sir.
Trade wars between the states. That'll be next.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
No, I imagine. I've been, Bill. This is where I thought you were going to go. Is in your report. This is a report that came out just this month. Budget forecast: $1.2 billion could very well be the tip of the iceberg. Could the tariff impact on the state of Colorado drive that deficit even higher? Your thoughts?
I suppose that's possible. Again, I wish I had some previous research to actually point to. We may be looking at this in the future, but since the situation with the tariffs changes on a daily, sometimes even hourly basis, depending on which day of the week it is, we haven't really had a firm grip on what it is that we would even analyze at any point in time. So we might have to wait for that to shake out a little bit more before the Common Sense Institute is able to do any kind of solid analysis.
That's DJ Summers. He's the Director of Communications and Research Operations for the Common Sense Institute. Nobody does it better in Colorado when it comes to nonpartisan, factual research on the impacts of our public policy decisions on our livelihoods, on the economy, on the direction of the state. Common Sense Institute does it the very best. Go visit commonsenseinstituteus.org. So much research there, commonsenseinstituteus.org. Now, you guys do a great thing called Eggs in the Economy. You got one coming up in June. DJ, give folks a sense of how they can get involved with the Common Sense Institute.
If you would like to get involved with the Common Sense Institute, Eggs in the Economy, or any one of our events would be a fantastic way to start. You can go to our website. You can get on there. You can register. You can also register for some newsletter updates if you want to. Obviously, we are a nonprofit, so a tax-deductible membership is always an option for you if you really want to get involved. But other than that, you can follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletters, really start just seeing some of the output that we are striving to give the Colorado public every day.
Some of the very best research coming from them, impacting the direction of this state with quality data and information. That's DJ Summers, Director of Communications, Research Operations, Common Sense Institute. Thanks so much for starting us off this morning.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Guys, thank you. I'm delighted every time I get to come on the show.
We'll keep it up. All right, DJ Summers, give us your thoughts on that. 303-696-1971, $1.2 billion, just the tip of the iceberg. And guys, when you look at the amount of money we're spending going out of the state compared to where we were just a few years ago, compared to population increase and inflation, it's not even close. We're just spending more and more money. And my question to you, are you getting what you want out of it? With all this increase in spending, I think we're at $43 billion now with our state budget. $43 billion. Are you getting what you want out of it? It's a general fund increase of 134% over the last 15 years. From my perspective, as somebody that grew up in the state, Colorado's worse today than it was, and we're spending more than we ever have before. But maybe I'm wrong. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Current projections for a $1.2 billion budget hole here in Colorado are too optimistic, the Common Sense Institute reporting. And if economic conditions continue to weaken in the state, it's going to get bigger and bigger. And it's not a taxing problem, it's a spending problem. General fund spending rose 134% between 2010 and 2025. In contrast, population growth was 19%, and consumer inflation, as measured by the CPI, was 48%. So it is getting bigger and bigger because of fees in the state. Let's go to the phone lines. Parker in Dacono. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show. What's on your mind, Parker?
Well, I wanted to just talk about the budget. Of course, I think Colorado's kind of a dumpster fire anymore. I mean, I grew up here in Colorado, and, you know, I just can't believe that kind of a budget, and it would be nice to have an independent auditing firm come in and say, what the hell are we spending all this on, guys? You know, we're definitely not spending it on our roads. We're definitely not spending it on cleaning up our, homeless population, although I think Hickenlooper spent, I forget how much, and just, nobody knows where in the hell that money went to, I just think we need to get some responsibility up here in Colorado. I'd like to see this a lot better state for our grandkids and great-grandkids, maybe, because it'll probably take that long to get it back on track if we can get the right governor and the right people in office.
Yeah, there's a lot of money going out there. We've talked about it before on this state or on this show. The city of Denver, for instance, can't account for a lot of money it's spent on homeless in some of its own auditing. Still doesn't know where some of the money went. And even just recently, Colorado paid more than $7 million to insurance companies for care to dead Medicaid members. So money going out the door to these types of things. They don't know where it's going. But the biggest impact for me is it's not solving our problems. So, for instance...
No, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Parker.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing, you know what I mean? I grew up here. We're, 4 generations in the trucking, so I've been all over the state. We're a regional carrier, and it's just terrible. We have some of our guys deliver downtown, and there's some companies we deliver to down there where you got to back into an alley, and some of our drivers refuse to back in there because of all the defecation and everything else that's in this alley. It's terrible. We got hold of the customer and said, guys, you either got to get somebody to clean this up in here, or we're not going to send our trucks in here anymore. It's a health hazard to our drivers. It's let's face it, it's a health hazard to the general public. And I think until we start enforcing those laws, I have empathy for the homeless. I have empathy for the people that have mental illness. And I think there's a hell of a lot of things we could probably do to get these guys back on track and these people back on track. And, maybe put some kind of a work program together. And once these guys are arrested because they've, broken the law, let's get them in some kind of a facility and say, here's where you're staying until we can get you guys straight again. In the meantime, guess what? For the taxpayers' dollars, we're going to put you on a work program and at least build up some kind of self-esteem and maybe help them get back on track.
Parker, I think people would be sympathetic to dollars going out of their wallets to these government programs if they saw results from these programs. Great call, Parker. Sure appreciate it. Speaking of results, somebody who delivers results for their clients every day has done that for 40 years is Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Look, if you've been injured in an injury case, you need somebody that shares your values right beside you. Dan Kaplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a great guy, solid on the values, he's a real winner in the courtroom. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551. Or hit dancaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to a special edition of the Jeff and Bill Show. It's tax day, and we're going to get back into our conversations about where your money's going or isn't going with regards to the federal government. But we're going to take a little moment for some levity with You Choose the News.
Yes, on tax day, we've got to remind you are getting your full value for what you spend here on You Choose the News with us. Yes, it is America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I've spent just moments this morning finding really dumb stories about us humans and giving them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why would we do this? Because those in charge have no idea we are this irresponsible with valuable airtime. So, shh, it's a giant secret.
Especially since we have a new boss.
Yes, I know. It's not very good. He's going to be so mad at me when he finds out. Alrighty. Now, Blake Olson is going to be joining us from the news department. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, your choices this morning are as follows. Headline number 1. Enhanced water causing problems. Headline number 2, the most offensive letter in the alphabet. Headline number 3, so much at stake. And headline number 4, you can't pop. Mr. Hunt.
Let's do enhanced water, please.
Yes, enhanced water causing problems. In many streams and rivers, the science hippies are finding out that fish are swimming in a veritable soup of enhanced water. Yes, bunch of drugs in there. They're finding that Atlantic salmon, though, exposed to certain types of drugs, actually enhance their migration, specifically anti-anxiety drugs. They were more successful in reaching their destination than the drug-free fish because they weren't scaredy cats. Yes.
Yeah, less anxiety, huh?
Yes. They said, though, this isn't necessarily a good thing because they take risks that they ought not to many times.
Hello,
in fact,
Mr.
when they,
Orca.
Yeah, when they got near certain turbines in the rivers, they weren't as scared of the spinning blades that would chop them into tiny pieces. Yeah. So very interesting. So yes, some of the drugs that are in the water are actually helping out the fishies. So yeah, who knew there were benefits? But they said again, this will change natural behavior. Might not
aren't
be
the
the best
drugs
thing.
changing the frogs too? Aren't they all becoming gay frogs or something?
That's we're not going to get to it later.
That's Alex.
Yeah, that's Alex Jones. That's not. No, that's not happening. All right. Okay, Blake Olson, sir. The most offensive letter in the alphabet. So much at stake, or you can't pop.
The most offensive letter in the alphabet.
Yes. Now, if we had to guess, listeners, what is the most offensive letter of the alphabet? Yes, you're going to find it 2/3 of the way through, and we're going to talk about it right now. Humans typically consider this idea a little more private, but for animals, a crucial way to share information. What are they doing? Yeah, they're letting it go. They're peeing. Sometimes on each other. Recently, researchers documented the Amazon River dolphins performing a curious behavior: aerial urination. The male turns onto his back and crests over the water surface and ejects a stream of pee well into the air. Why? Well, the weird thing is, other dolphins nearby come on over and get into the spontaneous fountain. They're not sure what this is. Normally, you see these type of things on German websites and you have to pay for it. But in this case, researchers speculate that male dolphins are using this to communicate their social position and also physical condition as well, because there are a lot of things that can be told from someone who's pee, and I'll leave that to the science hippies. But they say this isn't the first time that aquatic environments, some fish use urine to communicate their size, their aggressive behavior. Certain crustaceans use to convey information about their social status and their readiness to mate. So they don't know what it is or why the dolphins are peeing on each other, but they certainly are questioning it and want to know why.
Let me tell you about male goats.
Yes.
I got them.
Yes, they pee on their faces.
Yes, they do.
On their faces.
You believe that, Billy? Do you really believe it?
That what? They pee on their faces? Yeah.
Yeah. No, the
absolutely.
dolphins.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Dolphin.
Yeah.
Really?
That would make sense. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It would make sense because it's a way of communicating information. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's why dogs smell each other's rear ends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why because dogs will leave it and they'll look for things, and there are all sorts of different stuff they can smell inside the pee. Just got to figure out why they're doing it. Yeah.
It's Flipper.
That is Flipper. That is wonderful. And got to figure that Flipper at least once or twice peed on some of those kids. I'm just saying that probably happened.
Dude, Blake is so quick, man.
I know he is.
We do not coordinate these before the show.
No, not at all. This is fantastic. Okay,
well,
final
that's
choice
why
this
I
morning.
asked you that question.
Yes, that is
to stall you.
fantastic.
Sorry,
that is good. No. Okay, final choice this morning, gentlemen. Okay, Jeff. So much at stake, or you can't pop.
You can't pop.
Yeah, you can't pop. We go to Gloucester, England for this one. Recently, 55-year-old Anne Marie Murray was escorted off her flight because she didn't pay up. When she was on the flight, she ordered Pringles, water, and a Coke. It totaled $7.64, but she was unable to pay because the card machine wouldn't read her card. She said she can pay you at the end, and they said, no, they can't do that, ma'am. And she said, but what if I just give you the Pringles back? And she said, no, ma'am, you can't do that. Ma'am, we're calling the police. Yes, the police showed up and escorted her off of the plane because
Over
she couldn't pay.
$7?
Yeah, $7, and they wouldn't let her give back the potato chips. They hadn't been open or nothing. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of You Choose the News.
All right. Seems like somebody else in the airplane
Yes,
could help with
exactly.
that.
It's like, come on, guys.
All right, coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, Mike Boyle and Arthur Alley are joining us. We're talking taxes. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It's 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Now, most days, Bill and I are in a studio, and there's a glass wall protecting us, but every once in a while, they throw us out into the wild, and they let us sit next to each other, and then we start throwing food. No, I'm kidding. But it's going to be a live broadcast Wednesday, tomorrow, April 16th at the IHOP in Lakewood. And to give us a little preview is the guy who helped put this all together. You know him as the host of the restaurant show here on 710 KNUS, Mike Boyle. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. You know, I was actually thinking about this last evening, and as enjoyable as it is to go to an IHOP and to enjoy a nice breakfast, I know the listeners, I was thinking about, last weekend I was at the Courtyard Social. This Sunday for Easter, I'm broadcasting from India's Restaurant on Hamden. But how enjoyable it is for the three of us to get out and to meet with these wonderful people that take the time to listen to our shows. Don't you agree?
Oh, it is so much fun. And Billy and I will, get into good debates and stuff like that. But when we're out with public, it's always a lot of fun and excitement, joy, and everyone likes to give Billy a little bit of a hard time. He's kind of notorious. He's the notorious Bill Thorpe. So they want to take pictures with him, and it's always a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. We can't wait to be out there.
I actually think that we ought to change the disclaimer to say that it may not reflect the thoughts of the station. I think we ought to change it to say the thoughts of Bill Thorpe don't reflect anybody else's thoughts on.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. We need that. Yes. We need to get that done by tomorrow. Absolutely.
That's because Bill got a new boss.
Yeah. And don't hold me responsible for any of this. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Yeah.
And the new boss has nothing to do with Kelly, Michaels, or anybody. Everybody's here is just fine. But Donald Trump Jr. is now an important figure with Salem. So
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
Big news coming out yesterday that they've signed a new deal with Donald Trump Jr.
This is why I listen to KNUS, because I want to be up to date. I want to be up to speed, so I appreciate that. And you know what? I appreciate you guys letting me be involved in your very popular morning show. That's very nice. I'm looking forward to being out there tomorrow with both you guys and, of course, the listeners that take the time to come. Whether you just come for a cup of coffee or whether you have one of their delicious $7.10 meals, we'd love to have everybody that's listening join us.
Absolutely. You get to see the whole production of a live radio broadcast with the cameras and the radio equipment, the microphones, all that. And then a lot of our regular callers have swung by. For instance, the last time we did this, Joe from Arvada came by and got to meet Joe in person. Great conversation. Joe sat there with Billy. It was a ton of fun. I hope Joe will join us tomorrow. The regular callers, Tony, the rest of y'all, I'd love to see you swing by because we get to enjoy a breakfast together and get to take our friendship to another level, right? We're not just talking to each other through a phone. We're actually enjoying a meal together. And Mike, it's always impressed on me how a good meal can solve a lot of the world's problems, right?
Yeah, you know what? It's amazing how much business gets done in this country over a cup of coffee, over an enjoyable meal, over a bottle of wine. And so I don't think that we should minimize that. I think that's a big part of what this morning crew going out on the road is all about.
Mike Boyle, exactly right. He'll be with us. Blake will be with us. We'll be there tomorrow at the IHOP in Belmar, which is in Lakewood, right off of Wadsworth. 389. Yep.
South Wadsworth, on the west side of Wads, on the south side of Alameda.
Right there in the heart of Lakewood, and they've got a special deal for $7.10. It includes eggs, bacon, hash browns, and their world-famous pancakes. So after a brutal day of sending tax payments into both state and federal agencies, allow us to provide a very nice meal for only $7.10 tomorrow to make you feel better.
Yes.
Well, guys, thanks an awful lot. I'll look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Folks, information's on the station website. Information's on my website at mikeboyle.com. And you know what? We appreciate the 710 special. They've also got a $6 favorites menu, which I've found to be very enjoyable. So hopefully, I have no doubt we'll have a good crowd tomorrow. But roads are going to be dry. Weather's going to be good. And anybody that's listening, we'd love to have you.
Sounds great.
You know what? An old friend of mine in radio, Mason Lewis, and you know, I lost touch with Mason, but years ago he used to say talk radio is the last neighborhood saloon. And neighborhood saloons, you remember back in the days when they came in from the farms and the ranches, you gathered so you could talk. Well, talk radio is the last great neighborhood saloon, and we're going to even personify that tomorrow.
Hey, I love that. Mike Boyle, Blake Olson, Jeff Hunt, Bill Thorpe, all tomorrow, plus the whole 710 KNUS production team. That saloon is going to be at the IHOP in Lakewood at Belmar. All right, Mike, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. And speaking of seeing tomorrow, Blake Olson with the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.34 and sunny in Denver. Terrific Tax Tuesday to you. Expecting a high of 73 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
And if things don't really pan out as much as the Joint Budget Committee thinks they will over the next couple of years, we could be looking at a budget shortfall of billions of dollars more.
TJ Summers from the Common Sense Institute talking about the budget in Colorado with Jeff and Bill earlier this morning. The state's outlook as far as the budget goes is a little more optimistic than it probably should be.
I mean, you could say that your own personal household finances don't boil down to some kind of a spending problem if it makes you feel better. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're paying 3 times more for a particular utility, or you're paying 3 times more for your mortgage over the last 15 years, eventually you're going to have to admit that a lot of it is just a spending problem. And that is what has happened in Colorado. Over the last 15 years, we've really increased spending. I mean, our spending has jumped up compared with population and inflation too. Healthcare spending alone has more than quadrupled since 2010 from the general fund.
And Summers says it's quadrupled in almost every area of state government. It is tax day, and if you're behind on taxes, you need to file for an extension before the end of the day, and that'll give you 6 more months to file. Harvard University is losing more than $2 billion in federal grants for refusing the government's demands. The funding freeze came hours after the school said it would not accept the Trump administration's proposed conditions. Those demands include auditing the viewpoints of students and faculty and punishing students who took part in pro-Hamas terrorist protests on campus last year.
Do you have any questions, please?
President Trump.
No, let's not start
Mr.
with
President.
CNN because they're just so
Mr. President.
wrong.
Oh, yeah, all the fun in the Oval Office on Monday with the media. President Bukele of El Salvador says the MS-13 gang member who's a citizen of his country and in prison will not be returned to the U.S. on his watch. He's like, what, are you crazy? Even though CNN's Caitlin Collins could not understand what a third grader would understand.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States? What do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
I mean, he literally flipped his country from the most dangerous place in the world to one of the safest, and they want him to smuggle in a terrorist back into the United States. Nice job, media. Marco Rubio chimed in.
I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
The man suspected of setting fire to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence has been denied bail. Cody Balmer made his first appearance in court on Monday. The 17-year-old named Carmelo Anthony, who stabbed and murdered another 17-year-old at a track meet north of Dallas, is out on $250,000 bond. He has an ankle monitor. He is at home, and there are nut jobs out there who have donated $500,000 to him. For what? Taking a knife and stabbing someone in cold blood? This world is sick. The Keystone Oil Pipeline is back in operation. The pipeline's operators stopped the system last week after a spill in North Dakota, but restarted things on Monday. Police chase on I-25 last night, southbound, near the Meade exit, where it gets really jumbled up. The suspect driver fled on foot after being chased by Larimer County sheriffs. He had to pull over after a flat tire. He got out. He was armed. The suspect ran into oncoming traffic on the northbound side of I-25 after jumping the median, and he was hit, suffered serious injuries. One other person was injured. The highway opened a couple of hours later. The San Diego Zoo has released video showing a group of 5 elephants forming what experts call an alert circle during Monday's magnitude 5.2 earthquake. The elephants at the Safari Park location near Escondido formed the circle designed to protect the herd and younger elephants during the shaking. The zoo said that all 5 elephants are safe and back to their regular routines. That's pretty cool. The worst kept secret in the WNBA draft is a reality. UConn superstar Paige Beckers went first overall to Dallas. All right, the Nuggets tip off the playoffs against the Clippers at Ball Arena on Friday. Rocks lose Game 1 at the Dodgers 5-3 the final. 31 in Broomfield, 33 in Glendale, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Would you like to have salmonella or giardia?
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast in the Denver metro. A lot of sunshine today. Afternoon highs will hit the lower 70s. Going to be mild tonight under fair skies as well. Keeping it dry on the plains. Lows will be middle and upper 40s. Wednesday, we're going to hit the mid-70s. Daytime sunshine, but some clouds will build later in the afternoon. Wednesday night, a few light showers, otherwise partly cloudy. Lows upper 40s. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at Roofing Colorado.
Welcome back to a very special edition, the Money edition of the Jeff and Bill Show, as it is tax day. Now, imagine there was an investment firm out there that put filters on where the money was going, right? That they represent, that invests in pro-life, pro-family types of organizations, not investing a single penny into any company that violates biblical values. Well, that's the Timothy plan. And joining the Jeff and Bill Show is the founder and president of this great organization, investing money wisely according to biblical principles, Arthur Alley. Arthur, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
It is my honor. Thank you for having me on. And by the way, I happen to be in Orlando, and it's 78 degrees here. I heard your weather.
Yeah, a little colder.
But good luck. Yeah.
It is very nice down there. Now, the Timothy plan, you all have filters as to where you're going to invest your clients' money. Filters regarding life, stewardship, purity, longevity. So, for instance, you don't invest into tobacco. You support strong family-oriented businesses, sobriety, biblical lifestyle, liberty. This is a firm that invests money wisely. Tell us a little bit about the Timothy plan.
Well, that is substantially correct, but we are a biblically responsible mutual fund family. What that means, in biblical terms, it is very clear there's none righteous. So it's not like we're investing in quote unquote good companies. Only Christ was righteous. What we do and makes us different from the rest of the entire industry, the mutual fund industry, is we do deep research right here in Orlando. All of our funds are managed by top-tier money managers in different parts of the country, but we tell them what they cannot invest in for our shareholders. And just so you mentioned a couple, but I mean, when we first started 31 years ago, abortion was the hot item then. And believe it or not, publicly traded companies were and still are investing in abortion, contributing, directly involved, but also all the rest of it. It is all interconnected. When you look around, and you all report on this, I know, you shake your head saying, what in the world is going on? How can people follow or pursue an avenue of evil? And the only answer I know is we are in a spiritual war. It's always been a spiritual war. There is a big difference between people with traditional biblical values and those that don't have them. And corporate America, which is the world in which we are involved and invest in way too many cases, are involved in funding evil. And I mentioned abortion, but pornography, anti-family entertainment. Why would corporate America be doing that? Promoting of, LGBTQ++ agenda, and we're not here to point fingers at anybody or to exercise any condemnation or judgment of any kind. We just will not own shares of companies that are funding, for lack of a better way to express it, an unholy agenda. If they're doing that kind of stuff and it's anti-life, anti-family, our shareholders are very comfortable that we will not put $1 of their money into any of the shares of these kind of companies. And, if I can just go off on a quick tangent, when we launched this 31 years ago, well, it's 32 now. When we launched this, my friends on Wall Street said, Allie, you are nuts. And of course, I tell people, my wife continued to say that. That's a different story. I said, what do you mean I'm nuts? They said, you cannot create an investment platform that screens out the largest, most profitable companies in the investment industry and expect to get good investment returns. Well, my response to them then has not changed in 31 plus years. If you hold traditional values, especially if you are a Bible-believing Christian, obedience trumps performance every single time. Now, my job is to have our funds managed by top-tier firms that can get competitive performance. And we've proven over 31 plus years, you don't have to compromise your traditional values. And if you're a Bible-believing Christian, your biblical values in order to get good investment returns. If you did have to compromise performance, we would still do the same thing anyway because it's the right thing to do. But we've proven 31 years, our managers get competitive performance. You don't have to own shares of these companies. And finally, Wall Street is starting to wake up a little bit and start to walk away from this woke agenda, and we are very pleased to see that. But we do what we do. Our shareholders are very happy. And after 31 years, we're still here. You know, if we were getting, a fish on a shirt sleeve, substantial performance and promising something that we couldn't deliver, we wouldn't be here. So we are very happy with what we do, but more importantly, our shareholders are very pleased with the way we manage their funds.
That's the voice of Arthur D. Alley. He's the president and founder of the Timothy Plan. Now, in 32 years of money management, biblically towards organizations with biblical principles, let's talk about your view of how our federal government is spending money now. We're finding that there's putting a lot of money, especially under the Biden administration, in some very bizarre places, some harmful places. From your perspective, looking at where the federal government's putting taxpayer dollars, give us your thoughts.
This has been going on for a long time, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to see the current administration and the leadership that has been chosen under that administration to start righting a lot of wrongs. You know, this Doge group with Elon Musk, I mean, they have, this is tax day, guys. This is tax day. It's our money. Don't look at whether you get a refund or have to write an additional check to what you have had withheld. Look at the total amount of taxes that's being extracted from you. Look at some of the findings of this Doge organization and tell me you're happy with the kind of waste and ridiculous things that this government is doing. I guess, my friend, if I could just do, to help people understand, just take a little detour if you don't mind.
Please.
My friend Bob McEwen, who heads up the Council for National Policy that I'm a part of, he makes a good example of politics and money as easy as pie. And it's a simple example. If you are using your money to buy something you are going to use, is quality of that product important to you?
Of course.
Of course it is. Is price you're going to pay important to you? Of course it is. Okay? That's line one. You're buying it for yourself. Line two, if you're using your money to buy something for somebody else, price is pretty important to you. But quality, you might, give a little bit on. It's not as important. If you are using someone else's money to buy something for yourself, quality is very important. And it's somebody else's money, price doesn't matter all that much. And the final example is this. And folks, this helps you understand the problem that you just asked me about. If you are using somebody else's money to buy something for somebody else, is quality important to you? No. Is price important to you? No. And the bottom line is all governmental purchases are third-party purchases. That's why that's why we're head over heels in debt. That's why they feel, no problem in spending money in ridiculous ways in some of the stuff that they're funding. Our government has been one of the biggest funders of Planned Parenthood. They just fund a lot of bad stuff because it's third-party thing. They don't care. They just, I'm not too sure how many members of Congress right now have ever really worked for a living, having to meet payroll and do those kinds of things. But when you're immune and you're in politics all of your life, you have a whole different worldview than you do when you're on the front lines, slugging it out, trying to meet payroll and, make a budget and make things work. Have I been very disappointed in what our government has been doing for decades? Absolutely. Am I pleased with what's going on now and trying to right the wrongs? Absolutely. And is there going to be, you don't wiggle your nose and all of a sudden everything is better. These things are so entrenched. It's going to take some pain and some time. But I like the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm pretty darn sure it's not a train coming our way. They're doing the right things. They're trying to, get these wrongs for decades and decades and decades under all kinds of administration to right these wrongs. So am I happy? Yes. I think we're on the right track. And I think the pendulum, not just in government, we're seeing examples of the pendulum starting to swing back from ridiculous to common sense again and basic values again. And some of these corporations are on their own walking away from this DEI cancer, which has been so unproductive for them. We are encouraged, and folks, you need to be encouraged. But you can't sit back with your feet up on a desk and say, well, George is going to take care of this for us. Every one of us need to take responsibility and not let this thing slide back into oblivion again. So get engaged, whether it's, supporting good candidates, whether it's calling your legislature, whether it's just doing something instead of just sitting on the couch, watching ball games. And I do that as much as anybody, but you got to be engaged. You got to be engaged. And by the way, you all have a great university out there, a college in the football arena.
Yep. With Deion Sanders. Are you talking about the University of Colorado?
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah.
However, who won the championship this year? The Ohio State University. Forgive me for saying that, but that's my school.
Hey,
anyway,
Arthur, we're just happy to have a winning record because it was pretty bad with Deion Sanders, or before Deion Sanders got here, and we love Deion. And one of the reasons we love Deion, Arthur Alley, by the way, he's the founder and president of Timothy Plan, joining the Jeff and Bill show today, is he talks about Jesus all the time in the middle of Boulder, and the universities run, not entirely, but it's got a lot of woke professors. It's in the middle of the city of Boulder, not necessarily the most friendly to Jesus Christ. And he talks about Jesus. It's like the Bill McCartney days. Do you remember those days, Art?
Oh, buddy, they were dominant.
Yeah. It is fun. Yep. It is fun. We're talking with Arthur Alley. He's the founder and president of the Timothy Plan. Now, one of my favorite guys in Congress is Rand Paul, and Rand puts out his Festivus list every single year. Here's $1 trillion in government waste he details in a 41-page report, including things like ice skating drag queens, a $12 million Las Vegas pickleball complex paid for by by taxpayers, $4.8 million on Ukrainian influencers, and more. He's got a 41-page report on all this. And Art, you do a really good job of just detailing the fact that these politicians don't really believe it's necessarily their money they're spending. It's kind of monopoly money. They just kind of throw it out there. Donald Trump is changing this. Doge is changing this, but people are concerned that they still want government to work. So we're cutting government, but we're not necessarily stripping out Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, those types of things. Donald Trump has made that really clear. He wants to maintain those. So talk about how you balance good government while cutting the waste. Art?
Well, even the ones you mentioned, they're finding ridiculous waste in the what's called the entitlement portion of the budget. Social Security. I mean, they have people 300 years old still on Social Security. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody that old. But, all of the waste, all the hundreds of thousands, millions that are over 150 years old. still on the Social Security rolls. I don't know where that money's going, but there's a ton of waste. And they're finding a ton of waste in Medicare and Medicaid. And wherever there's not accountability, there is going to be waste. So even those programs can be cleaned up, trimmed down. You cannot continually borrow your way out of debt. And what we've got in America right now is very concerning, with $35 trillion in debt. A trillion, and it's been growing exponentially. Hopefully, you can't just balance a budget. You've got to have surplus to pay that debt down, or we are going into la-la land fiscally. You just cannot maintain that. And my concern, if I can give another example, is people have gotten to the point where a trillion is just a word. It has no content. It has no meaning to us. We can't relate to it. That's a big number. And I use an example of how to see how big a number that is by imagining you have a machine that prints at $1 every second, nonstop, 60 seconds a minute, 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, dollar, nonstop. How long do you think it would take that machine to print $1 trillion? Not 36, one. Take a guess.
5 years?
Close.
Yeah?
31,710 years.
Wow.
I mean,
jeez,
we're out of control, folks. Yeah. We've got to rein it back in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was way off.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. That is Art Alley you're hearing from. He's the founder and president of the Timothy Plan. We're talking money all day today, and we started the day with analyzing the Colorado state budget. It's $1.2 billion in the hole, and it's not because of revenue problems. It's because of spending problems. And I wanted to introduce people to a fund, an investment firm that's out there investing in biblical principles. And that's the Timothy Plan. And so a good place to put your money that does moral audits to make sure that your money is not going towards abortion, pornography, tobacco, alcohol, but the good stuff, or gambling, but the good stuff out there, supporting strong marriages, family entertainment, liberty and rights, the sanctity of life and purity, all that. I just wanted to make sure people knew about the Timothy Plan and got a chance to hear from its founder and president as well. You can go to timothyplan.com, timothyplan.com, if you want to learn more about the great work that they're doing. But Art Alley, thank you so much for taking time and giving us a little bit of hope today.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Oh, man, thank you. Thank you for the good work you guys are doing out there.
Appreciate you, and we'll continue. If you want to talk about, funds like this, or even the problems we're facing with where our government's spending money. For instance, the Festivus report that Rand Paul puts out, $1 trillion of government waste. For instance, a Florida man stole $8 million in COVID relief funds to buy an island for himself.
Yeah, I just like the fact that with Art, it's that he's going to stay true to his principles. That he's like, no, we can get this done. And he does get the best fund managers available, but then gives them parameters on what they can invest in. He's going about it the right way. And I was talking off air to Mark Crowley, and you have things like Patriot Mobile that are out there. Right. And that's nice. But Patriot Mobile still has to buy their carrier space on T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T. So even though you're not spending money directly with those companies, your money is still going there. That's not the case with what Art is doing with the Timothy Plan. This is something that is totally independent. So if you're looking at a really good way to uncouple your investments from those companies' programs and things that do not follow your faith, this is a great option. I really like what he's doing. This is fantastic.
Great to have Art with us. Thank you so much. Speaking of other great organizations, let me tell you about alarm detection systems. Reliability isn't optional. When business security is on the line, it's essential. Businesses trust alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could use saving if you had all just one source for your cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request. Because look, downtime, it's just not an option. Dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your businesses stay protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools, their security experts will review your system for free. All you got to do, go to adsalarm.com and schedule today. That's adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's tax day. One of my favorite reports out there is the Festivus report that Rand Paul does every year. It's around Christmas time. In this last year, he listed $1 trillion of waste in the government. Here's some of it. The Department of Health and Human Services awarded a $2 million grant to study kids looking at Facebook ads about food. The Department of State spent $108,000 on a non-functioning hotel. Congress spent $15 million to turn the Internal Revenue Service into an unconstitutional force to prepare, file, and audit your hard-earned money. It was a direct file fail. Oh, rats! HHS spent nearly $500,000 on a depressing study of lonely, starved rats to see if they sought cocaine more than happy rats. It was $419,000. Hold on to your steering wheels. The Department of Energy spent $15.5 billion to push Americans towards electric vehicles they don't want. Goodness gracious. Let's go to the phone lines. Joan Lakewood. Good morning, Joan. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so excited that you all are having your group, the radio show, come to Lakewood. It's very, very great. I think you'll have a lot of people tomorrow because you're going to have a very nice breakfast for $7.10, and everybody is going to feel the bite of this tax check. Yeah. So
yes,
I'm glad you guys are going to be there. But I wanted to say that we wrote a check last week for twice our property tax bill that we wrote in January.
Oh.
And that property tax bill was twice what we paid last year. So we're looking at a tax bill that's gone up 3 times what we paid previously.
Oh, my gosh. And, Joan, how does that affect your family?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I'm around people who are on the verge of retiring and stuff, and they're starting to have to cash in stuff, you know. We haven't had to cash in anything yet, and this is a terrible thing to say, but we kind of live within our means and always have. I mean, my husband...
How dare you?
Is the best coupon clipper there ever was. And yesterday we went to Burger King on a coupon that got you 2 junior burgers for $6. So yeah, it hasn't majorly affected us yet, but it's not good.
I got to tell you, Joan, I love how your husband rolls. He's my kind of dude. That's what I did the other day. The other day I was complaining to Jeff about the fact that if I used the app for Burger King, I could get a Whopper on special for $3.99, but it was $7.50 if I didn't use the app and went to the restaurant. Like, hey, that ain't cool, but yeah, your husband is a guy after my own heart. That's exactly it there. I firmly believe there is an Arby's near where I live that they changed their coupon rules about 6 years ago because I was robbing them blind. They let you turn in as many coupons as possible, and I would double and triple use one coupon. And they're like, wait, you paid $20 and you're walking out of here with like 7 bags of food? I'm like, yep, I played the game. I love that of your husband. Now, wouldn't it be nice if just for once we would force our lawmakers to clip coupons like we do as well, you know, to find, okay, we're going to do educational funding, 2-for-1 sale on crayons, something like that we could do something, you know, where they could spend things more efficiently. Now, Joan, you spend a lot of time walking and talking to a lot of voters and people, both of your party and outside your party in your neighborhood. What are people saying about the economy right now? We're getting into tax season. What are people saying about prices? What are people saying that you're talking to about the pain in their personal budget right now? Because you talked about friends of yours having to cash some stuff in. What are you hearing?
Honestly, I am hearing so much more about how excited they are that Trump did what he was supposed to promise.
Oh, good.
The border. And right now, everybody is like, so we have a judge out there that thinks that we should go back to El Salvador and pick up this guy and bring him back? This is insanity.
And he's from El Salvador.
Oh, I know. And we're just all sitting here going, and he's not a citizen, and you're not his judge, and you know, I get that there is tightness, and we're going to experience more tightness. But I'm going to tell you, there are people out there that are seeing movement, and they haven't seen movement in their government for some time. So, yeah, there's some interesting things going on. The one problem that I have, and this is terrible, is that I couldn't visualize what $1 trillion was, you know. And so then I sat down, and my husband says, $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. And I'm like, okay. And then I started thinking about Doge and what they're finding. And every day I get up, and they have a new thing that's found, and I'm like, great, there's another 2 billion. Well, 2 billion every day will take 500 days to get to $1 trillion. And we're in debt like, what, 36 trillion?
36 trillion, yeah. I mean, it is wild. Well, Joan, we've got to get to a break here. I sure appreciate
thank you so
your
much. Hope to see
phone
you
call.
tomorrow.
Always great to hear from you, and I hope we'll see you tomorrow at our live broadcast in Lakewood at the IHOP in Belmar. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. It's tax day, and you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It is tax day. Those checks going out. And I've heard from folks that said, even if you need to get an extension, get the filing done today. You just got to get it done, even if you can't necessarily make the payment or stuff. Negotiate that out with the IRS.
Penalties. No,
but don't.
Penalties.
Don't ignore it.
No, that's the worst choice. That is the absolute worst choice.
100%. So figure it out with them. Get the phone calls going, but at least get the filing done. So
going la 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 la. I don't see the taxes. That doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. They know you owe. That's the dumb part, is that they have all the paperwork. I wish we'd do it like in Japan, because in Japan for tax day, the government sends you a postcard and says, here's how much your tax bill was over the course of the year that you paid, and here's where the money went. That's it, because they have all of our returns. They have all the stuff already. They could do the math. Our government's just too lazy to do the math. They're hoping we mess it up. That's really what it is.
Well, the National Institute of Health spending $1.5 million on spinning cats to determine their motion sickness. Spinning kittens. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This kind of sounds like the show. This is KNUS.
Billy, it's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and we are kicking off a very special tax day version of the Jeff and Bill Show. We are in the wrong business, Bill. Look at this. This comes from Rand Paul's Festivus report. $32,000 that the Department of State allocated for breakdancing. Could you could do that?
Oh yeah.
If someone wrote you a check for $30,000, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't say it has to be good. But you could do. You would break dance for 30 grand, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I would
yeah.
break dance for
why
30
not?
grand.
Yes, absolutely. Why not? I'd do that for 30.
And why is the Department of State spending that money?
Yeah, I wonder what it was. Who was it? Who was the breakdancer they brought in? That's what I'd be curious about.
Let's see if we can find out. Taxpayers get spun. Department of State allocated $32,596 for breakdancing. Australian breakdancer Ray Gunn's debut at the 2024 Olympics was a spectacle, just not the kind of way she intended. Her routine was somewhere between a pouncing kangaroo and an accidental cartwheel.
If they spent it on Ray Gunn, I'm okay then, just because.
That prompted us. Well, I mean, that's the intro here.
Oh, okay.
That then prompted them to ask, how much did the U.S. government spend on breakdancing in 2023-2024? Notably, 3 grants have been awarded. These grants total $32,000, directed towards enhancing Olympic breakdancing endeavors in Nigerian breakdancing workshops and performances.
Okay.
So they went to grants for Nigerian breakdancing advancement.
I'm okay. It's 30 grand. I'm okay with that.
My gosh.
I'm not that as worried about it, honestly. Personally. I'm like, okay.
Oh, this is the stuff that drives me nuts. It's like under my fingernails because it's just like we're $36 trillion in debt. And going back to art, the interview we had last hour, when it's not your money, you just the value and the amount just, I guess, doesn't really matter. But $32,000 on Nigerian breakdancing grants. All right. In this hour on the Jeff and Bill Show, we're going to talk to David McGarry, research director of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, about how DOGE is reforming the IRS and what that's going to mean moving forward. It's a special tax day edition of the Jeff and Bill Show, diving into all this. And after you have to mail in that check to the federal government, to the state government today, Bill and I want to help you out tomorrow. We're going to provide a breakfast, high-quality breakfast for only $7.10 at the IHOP in Belmar. We're doing a live broadcast right there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., the IHOP in Belmar off of Wadsworth, 6th Avenue, right there. You're not going to want to miss this because it's an incredible opportunity to come hang out with us.
Yeah, we're going to be there for all 4 hours doing the show live. And for $7.10, eggs, bacon, hash browns, and the world-famous IHOP pancakes. That's $7.10. We'll repeat that. Eggs, bacon, hash browns, and pancakes. There isn't a single place in town you're going to plop down your hard-earned cash that's going to get you a better deal on something that is made hot and fresh to order right there for you that morning. Remember, you're going to swing by that coffee place. You're going to grab your coffee that's actually a milkshake, and then you're going to grab that prepackaged food. Oh, yeah, the stuff that was put into a package weeks, if not months ago, and then sit in a truck, and then transport it across the country, and then put on a shelf, and it's been there for... Anyone? How long? Yeah, I know. That's not the way to start the day. Come and hang out with us. And again, you run through those fast food places. Again, fast food. You understand how that is, and the prices are rising higher than ever. There's no way you're going to be able to get coffee plus a $7.10 breakfast, eggs, bacon, hash browns, and the pancakes anywhere else in town. It's going to be the best deal that we've got for you, hooked up by Mike Boyle of the Restaurant Show. He's going to be there with us, and we've heard rumors that even Blake Olson will make an appearance. We don't know. We think the parole officer has said it's okay that he can come out from home arrest just for a little bit.
Now,
so
there's a text message here that's perfect that's going to sum this up tomorrow, okay? This is 2033. Bill and Jeff, this is Mike, the Art Laffer guy.
Oh, hey.
I'm going to try to be at the IHOP tomorrow. Hometown, grew up down the street. That IHOP is legendary for me. Anyways, I bet you're more dorky live than in YouTube. And he is 100% right. 100% right,
absolutely.
Dude.
Yes,
we
110%.
push the dorky levels to
I'm
astronomical
such a nerd.
levels.
Yeah, I'm such a goof. Yeah.
So that's tomorrow. Come hang out with us. and Blake Olson. Now it's time for the man himself, Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
34, I think. It may be warmer than that, actually. It's sunny in Denver. Terrific tax day Tuesday. Expecting a high of 73 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, this is beautiful this morning.
Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say, let's make America great again in Spanish. So, vamos a hacer América grande otra vez.
America grande otra vez.
Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say, let's make
If you
America.
see the video, you're going to love it. Make sure you check that out. This is a day after we heard this.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can?
Yes, it is preposterous. The president of El Salvador says, no, I'm not going to smuggle in my own citizen into the United States now that he's in jail. The MS-13 gang member has been referred to as a Maryland man, and 47 says he's considering sending citizens who've committed violent crimes to the Central American country over and over and over. Both issues came up Monday as DJT welcomed President Bukele to the White House.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand it. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous. Not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart.
Very productive meeting yesterday.
Now, Blake, do you remember the episode in The Office between Pam and Michael where Michael's dating Pam's mom?
I don't because
You never got into The Office?
I never
Okay.
watched The Office, but I know Office.
There's this famous line from the show where Pam says to Michael, her boss, "Stop dating my mom. He's dating his," and he goes, "I'm going to date your mom harder." And it drives her nuts. So I feel like the media is like, Stop it! You're putting these guys into this El Salvadorian prison, and it's terrible. And he's just, I feel like Trump's looking right at him. I'm going to put him down there harder.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to take more Maryland men and put them down there harder.
They're not even have to be illegal immigrants. You just break the law. I'm going to send you to an El Salvadorian prison. And it just drives them nuts, right?
Yes.
Like they just, the pearl clutching.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
What about their feelings? I'm going to put them down there harder.
I can't believe they're choosing that to fight. I mean, it just went on like 3 or 4 questions. Oh, when are you going to bring him back? Why can't you bring him back? Because he's from El Salvador. And did you happen to catch AOC doing her best Hillary Clinton Kamala Khan impersonations? Man, they love changing their dialects, don't they?
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud.
And you would have also if you were the victim of weaponization.
Liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too.
I think she's related to Mazie Hirono. Too?
Yeah, a tip?
When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Yeah! Yeah! Yes!
That was incredible. The federal government is pressing pause on more than $2 billion in grants to Harvard. The move came after the school said it would not accept the Trump administration's proposed conditions to continue federal funding. See, it's a grant, so they have to meet these. Those demands include auditing the viewpoints of students and faculty and punishing students who took part in pro-Hamas terrorist rallies on campus last year. The suspect in the arson attack at the Democratic Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence remains behind bars after being denied bail. Cody Balmer made his first appearance in court on Monday. Love the Jeff and Billy Show. Love it. Last hour, Arthur Alley was on, founder of the Timothy Plan, money management without investing in the devil's work, the woke agenda. Let's go, Arthur.
World in which we are involved and invest in way too many cases, are involved in funding evil. And I mentioned abortion, but pornography, anti-family entertainment. Why would corporate America be doing that? Promoting of, LGBTQ++ agenda, and we're not here to point fingers at anybody or to exercise any condemnation or judgment of any kind. We just will not own shares of companies that are funding, for lack of a better way to express it, an unholy agenda.
Arthur Alley, the Timothy Plan. Hey, since it is tax day, the biggest talk is about the budget and paying your taxes and spending in the state of Colorado is an issue. And DJ Summers of the Common Sense Institute on with the fellas this morning also. He says Coloradans need to be concerned with the outlook in our state.
And if things don't really pan out as much as the Joint Budget Committee thinks they will over the next couple of years, we could be looking at a budget shortfall of billions of dollars more.
He says the state is spending way too much, especially the past 15 years, and it's about to catch up to us. Police chase I-25 last night, southbound on I-25 near the Meade exit. Suspect was driving. He got a flat tire. He was carrying a weapon and sprinted over and jumped over the median into the northbound traffic on I-25. There was a wreck. He got hit, and he's in serious condition. There was one other person injured. They were able to open up the highway a couple hours later. The worst kept secret in the WNBA draft is a reality. UConn superstar. I love how they put superstar here. I don't know if she's a superstar, but she's a star. Paige Beckers went first overall to Dallas. All right, Nuggets take on the Clippers. First round of the NBA playoffs coming up on Friday. The Rockies lose game one at the Dodgers 5-3. 31 in Broomfield, 33 in Glendale, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I think we ought to change it to say the thoughts of Bill Thorpe don't reflect anybody else's thoughts on
Oh, yes.
What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. We need that. Yeah. Would you like to have salmonella or giardia?
All right, we're not going to break dance tomorrow at IHOP, but we will do some pop locking. I'm sure Billy and I will do that for you. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast in the Denver metro. A lot of sunshine today. Afternoon highs will hit the lower 70s. Going to be mild tonight under fair skies as well. Keeping it dry on the plains. Lows will be middle and upper 40s. Wednesday, we're going to hit the mid-70s. Daytime sunshine, but some clouds will build later in the afternoon. Wednesday night, a few light showers, otherwise partly cloudy. Lows upper 40s. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
It's tax day, and we're doing our best. We're trying to help you cope through all this craziness. Tomorrow, we're going to help you with a nice, affordable breakfast. But in the meantime, you might be sending checks out to the federal government, to the state government, and to give us some insight into, how our government's doing with our taxpayer dollars. We've talked with local leaders. We've talked with investment leaders. We're talking with national leaders. Joining us now is David McGarry, Research Director for the Taxpayer Protection Alliance. David, thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Having me on, gentlemen, and a very happy tax day to all who celebrate.
All right. We've been going through some of Rand Paul's Festivus reports, money going to Nigerian breakdancing grants. How well is our government doing with our taxpayer dollars, David?
Well, it certainly is collecting them, and it's poised to collect more if Congress can't get its act together by the end of the year and extend 2017's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. But on the spending side, in the words of the TV show Mad Men, not great, Bob. The federal government is spending far too much on far too many things. It's involving itself far too deeply in the lives of your average American. And this is having all sorts of negative economic effects. It's having all sorts of negative cultural and political effects. And at a certain point, where the rubber meets the road is on Capitol Hill. And Congress is going to have to do something about out-of-control spending from Washington.
And how does that out-of-control spending affect us? I mean, look, we're $36 trillion in debt. One of the critiques I've had is, okay, how did my life change from $30 trillion in debt to $36 trillion in debt? I don't know if I could tell you exactly how it changed, but I imagine it did. And I imagine this isn't just sustainable, right? It's not just monopoly money. Eventually, this is going to have real impacts on our economy. Maybe it already is. Your thoughts, David McGarry?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that if I offered to give you $20 and I told you you only had to give me $5, you would take that deal. Now, of course, I would have to finance the rest of the $15 through debt, and that's exactly the kind of problem that the federal government is in right now. So, what you have missed out on in the last the last $6 trillion of debt accumulated isn't readily apparent. When the government is taking too much money out of the economy, when it is monopolizing too much of financial markets, you don't see the costs. These are the sorts of things that are unseen. These are costs that go unnoticed because it's the question is always what if we had a right-sized government and a more dynamic economy, what would happen? What other benefits would we be able to enjoy? How much stronger would the economy be? And looking forward, the fact is that, as you said, it is not sustainable. The current trajectory cannot go on forever. At a certain point, the simple laws of mathematics will catch up to us, and we will be barreling and eventually arrive at a very serious fiscal crisis.
We're talking with David McGarry. David's the research director for the Taxpayer Protection Alliance. All right, let's dive in. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Tell us why that needs to be extended.
Trump's signature legislation in his first term was the TCJA, this tax relief bill that you mentioned, and it expires at the end of the year. So Congress has something of a shot clock that is ticking away at this point. And if the bill isn't renewed, not only will the corporate tax spike back up, which will be very bad for American businesses, but 62% of Americans are estimated to pay higher personal taxes. So what that means for your listeners is that they will be paying higher taxes when they go to file next year. And there will also be fewer jobs available. There'll be fewer products available. Businesses will be investing less because they're also being taxed higher. So we're looking at poor personal or poor individual taxpayers and a poorer economy at large if this bill is not, or if this law is not renewed before the end of the year.
Now, we're looking at $36 trillion in debt. We're seeing DOGE cut spending in some capacities, but if you take Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense spending off the table, okay, we're not going to cut those, which is what Trump has said, well, then you're left with 16% of the budget. How do you deal with the $36 trillion in debt if you're not going to get to cuts in some of those services like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security?
Well, the fact is that you have to reform those services. It is the only way to make a dent in the deficits, to slow the accumulation of debt, or possibly to actually stop the accumulation of debt. In our constitutional system, the Congress is the first branch of government. It is in Article 1, and it's the branch that's supposed to drive policymaking. In a democratic republic, the democratic part is the people's elected representatives doing their jobs and making hard calls in order to ensure the fiscal sustainability of the country. And right now, Republicans aren't incredibly willing to do that. Unfortunately, they've been focused on other things and other worthy things like extensions of the tax cuts. But at some point, hopefully in the next couple of years, they will get serious about entitlement reform. They'll get serious about cutting back down to size the money that goes out from the federal government every year.
We're talking with David McGarry. He's the research director for Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Now, David, why not just raise taxes and make the rich pay more of their fair share? That's what the left often says. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, the left isn't particularly good at math, and even if you were to confiscate from the highest earners, you still wouldn't really have enough to fund the kind of welfare state that the left would like to see put in place. Also, at the end of the day, if you are taxing corporations, even big corporations, if you're taxing wealthy Americans, there will be an effect that is felt across the rest of the economy. The economic dynamism and the growth of the economy depend on low tax rates, and so the best solution, if say you have an eating problem, is to stop eating. The best solution, if you have a spending problem, is to stop spending. At a certain point, efforts to raise more revenue will only suck resources out of the economy. It will only create economic stagnation, and that will not help the fiscal crisis in the long term.
That's David McGarry. You're hearing from research director for the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Let's talk about changes to the IRS now. What are you seeing coming from the Trump administration with regards to changes to that institution?
The Trump administration is preparing to cut down the size of the IRS staff. Now, of course, Joe Biden increased the staff of the IRS, and they used it to go lob more audits at Americans. Now, another side point I will note is that tax reform should make the tax code simpler. Right now, our tax code is so complex that people will make mistakes on their forms completely in good faith and then suddenly be out of compliance, and they will be potentially subject to an audit. And that's not a fair system. We should have a system where anybody can go file their taxes with minimal risk of doing something wrong due to complexity. The Trump administration, as I said, is trying to cut down staff at the IRS, and this is just fine as far as I'm concerned. If we're talking about the audit division, I would actually, and this is one of the rare times you'll get something like this from me, I would like to see the customer service division of the IRS strengthened. The IRS has a dismal customer service record. One of the reasons why the American citizens aren't particularly fond of the IRS is because the agency has a habit of not answering calls, not helping people when they're trying to navigate this complex tax code in real time. So the IRS has a lot of work to do to clean up its own house, and I certainly hope that besides any personnel changes, the Trump administration is also looking to reform the ways in which the IRS goes about its job.
That's David McGarry. He's the research director for the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. All right, so Bill, David, you guys got to help me here because it seems a little funny to me. All right, so when you go to pay your taxes, you do all these calculations and you work with your accountant and you pull it all together and you go, okay, this is how much I think I owe in taxes. Now, the IRS doesn't tell you how much you owe. You just kind of have to send in a form to the IRS saying, I think this is how much I owe. Then the IRS responds and goes, yes, that's fine. Or, no, you paid too much, or you didn't pay enough. Why? I guess I just don't understand why it's on the burden of the taxpayer to figure that out if the IRS knows how much we should pay, but is expecting us to put together the whole form. Am I wrong in this? Can you guys help me understand this? I'll go to you first, David.
Well, this is the problem of a massive sprawling bureaucracy that has to deal with so many people, so many millions and tens of millions of people every year. However, I agree with you. The burden shouldn't necessarily be on the taxpayer, particularly when the tax code is so complicated that if someone is, say, pulling in an extra form from a contracting gig or something else like that, things can get very complicated very quick. And an inadvertent accident can plunge someone into a world of audits. And that's sort of no great way to run a railroad, if you will. But at the end of the day, if we had a simplified tax code, if people were able to just sort of input their forms or write down their forms, talk to an accountant, and then they would send their checks in, that would eliminate quite a few of these problems. And I think, and again, this is sort of an unsexy answer because I can't tell you that, Elon Musk is going to ride in on a white horse and save everything, but Congress really has to make reform here. Congress has to be the one that takes the lead and change the fundamentals of the law.
Bill, I mean, am I wrong in that sense that it's kind of funny that you have to, I guess if you're pulling in revenue and you haven't notified the IRS of that, then that becomes the way you notify it. But it is kind of an interesting system because you're like, here's how much I think I owe. The IRS knows, and it can either punish you or just let it go. But why don't they just tell us how much we owe? I don't know. I kind of find it weird.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that the government should be doing our taxes. They have all the information. They have the money. Yeah. They're just too lazy to do the math. And when we talk about simplifying tax code, et cetera, that can work. But I think the fundamental problem is that you and I are left having to do our own taxes. And some of that will be a function on how well we can navigate that system will be based on education, be based on our skills, and be based on the money we can spend. So the people that have the ability to buy the smarter people that can be the better tax return filers do a better job. It's a complete imbalance of the system. And the government already has these numbers. They could do the math. They're just refusing to. That's my argument, is they can do the math for us.
And then punishing you when you don't get it right.
Oh, yeah. They're the teachers with the answer key in the back of the book and then getting mad at us for getting the math wrong. You know the math. Do the math. That's my thing. I just think that we're wasting a lot of time. We don't have to do it. The government could figure it out for us. But when we had IRS allowing to, provide filing and helping you navigate the system to file, people jumped up and down and screamed about that. So I'm not certain that we'll ever change the system because I don't think we will trust the government to do that for us. But
David, do you see any changes coming?
Well, the Biden administration actually ruled out a program called Direct File, which wasn't the government doing your taxes for you, but it was a portal, a government portal through which you could do your taxes. And if I may go out on a limb here, possibly, TPA actually opposed the Direct File program because I don't trust the IRS to do my taxes, to be quite frank. If you look at the IRS's auditing patterns, they tend to not go after the largest tax sheets. They tend to go after upper middle class Americans at times, but also a lot of Americans in the lower income brackets because it's easy. So I personally think that it is better for the average American to have some sort of intermediary who is not the government to stand in between the citizen and the government, some sort of professional like an accountant, to provide some amount of barrier between the IRS's legions of agents and the American citizen who, again, might have just got something wrong on their tax filing or might have forgotten to report some sort of income.
Now, I want to explore that just for a second with you,
yeah.
David McGarry, a research director at Taxpayers Protection Alliance. You talked about the fact that the IRS doesn't go after the big earners, and you're absolutely 110% correct on that. But isn't that a function of resources? Number of people, manpower available, amount of resources you can dedicate because they suck up a lot of time and effort. They're the big fish, but they also can afford all the big lawyers that make it more difficult. Is the IRS, haven't we just structured the IRS in our tax system to specifically go after the middle and lower income earners because that's all they have the ability to do?
Generally speaking, that is the case. However, the IRS received an influx of funds during the Biden years, and they had pledged not to use those funds to go after anyone under some threshold. There was something like
it was like 250,000 or something like that. Yeah. It was actually above that. It was actually above that, I believe. And what was found is that they were actually going after people, maybe not middle income people, but people who were sort of upper middle class to the lower end of affluent. And those are the people
those are the people that the IRS decided to put its resources after. So when you have such a clear and blatant trail of falsehoods like that, I just have trouble trusting anything that the IRS is saying. This also goes back to the Obama administration when Lois Lerner took part in the effort to squash conservative groups. These things are recurring. These things they seem somewhat endemic to the institution, and I personally would rather I would rather make policy that does not trust the IRS to keep its word and be a good citizen, and instead put some guardrails in place to make sure that we are keeping them in the place and keeping them doing the job that they should be.
That's David McGarry, research director of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. A lot of concerns coming from conservatives with regards to the IRS was they were buying ammunition. Can you help us understand why they were doing that?
I'm not familiar with the ammunition specific, but one thing the IRS has done over the last couple of years is beef up what amount to SWAT teams. You would think that if you were going after little grandmas who were filing taxes on their Social Security, you wouldn't need the SWAT team. I do think there is a question to be asked of why the IRS is arming itself to the teeth when its customer service division still has problems. I will admit to not necessarily being an expert in exactly how the federal government organizes its duties, but I would think that an agency like the DOJ might be slightly better positioned to do some of these more tactical operations. In general, though, I would say the IRS, when it gets new money, it puts it, generally speaking, to the wrong places, and that's something that Congress and DOJ in the shorter term certainly should look into.
That's David McGarry with the Taxpayer Protection Alliance. I strongly recommend you connect with them, learn more about the work they're doing to protect your rights as a taxpayer. That's protectingtaxpayers.org, protectingtaxpayers.org. David, great job. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you so much.
Put the money into customer service.
Yeah, but now they're cutting customer service, so that's going to get worse. And that's part of the issue, is the pain is part of the point. I don't know. This is the whole Tax Cuts and Job Act and keeping that going, and it's difficult. It's difficult for me to get there with the idea and the rationality behind continuing it. I just have a hard time with it.
Lower taxes?
No, the idea, because what happened is during the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we didn't see a lot of lower taxes for the average family. The household income didn't increase like it was supposed to. The jobs didn't materialize. That's the idea, is I didn't see the benefits. I don't see the benefits happening because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So if the benefits aren't there because of it, then what's the negativity of having it disappear? If the positives weren't there to begin with, then where are the negatives? That's what I can't figure out in this.
Yeah, give us a call. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Donald Trump working to extend with Congress the Tax Cuts and Job Act, TCJA. Should that continue? Would you like to see greater tax cuts? Are the rich paying their fair share? It's Money Episode. And you're invited to be a part of the conversation, 303-696-1971. Let me tell you about a good use of your money. Guys, if you are losing your hair and you desire to have it back, then Advanced Hair Restoration is the best place to put that money because it has guaranteed life-changing results. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not magic, but close to it. They put hair where you need it the most, and bam, it grows. It's actually science. Advanced Hair has it all. Top-rated Dr. Tanya Paul's modern technology, and best of all, you get your very own natural hair that begins regrowing the very next day. Advanced Hair even guarantees it will grow for life. So schedule your free consultation now, 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver and has changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. So don't wait any longer. Check out the before and afters online for yourself. 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We get the phone lines coming in. Let's talk taxes, baby. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's tax day. How about your tax dollars being used to support a cabaret show on ice skates focused on climate change? National Endowment of the Arts spent $10,000 on the Bearded Ladies Cabaret to support a cabaret show on ice skates focused on climate change. All right, let's welcome back to a special edition of the tax program craziness happening out there. Let's go to the phone lines. Jack in Wyoming. Good morning, Jack. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Yeah, since you seem to have some kind of a review going on about how taxpayer dollars are being used, what about the story last week where it said that 4,000, not 4,000, was it 4 million? I don't remember what it was. Dollars was Colorado taxpayers was being set aside for the purposes of putting some different lawsuits against Donald Trump. Now, do you remember the story? It was a week ago. So where is that story? Where is that story being handled within this topic of whether taxpayer dollars are being used appropriately or not? That's my question.
Oh, that's just the tip. That's what the general fund wants to spend in order to sue Donald Trump, pay trial attorneys. And they've actually now launched a GoFundMe. So you can go donate even more of your hard-earned dollars, Jack, to suing Donald Trump if you like.
Yeah, okay, you're talking about two different things. If somebody wanted to donate it, that would be voluntary. If it's being taken out of the tax coffers that the people have paid, that's a different story. So where is that at?
I think it's working its way through the House. It was a bill introduced during this budget debate that's taking place right now. So, yep, it's a proposal coming from the Democrats. We covered that last week. I got a whole video on it. If you go to x.com/Jeff Hunt.
Well, if that isn't on the point of what's inappropriate, I don't know what would be.
Here's their argument, Jack. Here's their argument, because I can put myself in their position, okay? Because this is what we heard from them.
Who is this,
Jack?
Billy?
No, this is Jeff. But I'll give you their side of it.
Billy could put himself in their position. I don't think you could.
But their argument is, look, Donald Trump is cutting all of this federal funding from our state that does all this good work. We have to sue. $4 million is but a drop in the bucket to the hundreds of millions of dollars we can get from the federal government. Your thoughts, Jack?
You're going to pay lawyers to argue with what the president is entitled to and isn't entitled to. That's cute. Where would that ever end? That would be a retirement fund for every lawyer in the state, for God's sake.
Yeah, but they did the other thing, but they've done it with both parties. I mean, there were tons of lawyers that got fat checks arguing that Biden was overstepping his grounds. We all remember the student debt forgiveness program. So that, I mean, it's a horse apiece. Both sides do this. Both sides get their lawyers rich. And the thing that makes me mad about the idea of the $4 million slush fund being created here in Colorado to fight Trump is that the people in charge of the money have a history of going out of state to find their lawyers. I'd be a little bit amenable to the idea that, okay, even though I don't think I would agree necessarily with all the lawsuits they would file, but if they were spending it here locally, even on local lawyers, at least the money would stay here, and we know that people would be paying rent or paying mortgage and going to restaurants and buying gas. So that would at least make me feel a little bit better that we'd be spending the $4 million here. But however, the people in charge have shown a prevalence for going outside of our state to go spend our money somewhere else with other lawyers, and that just pisses me off. And just in general, if we're going to have to spend it.
The important point of what you said is it's a proposal, and unless it's approved by the local authorities, it's not going to go through. In other words, it's just a proposal.
It will. It's part of the budget. It's what they're going to plan. And there's no way they're taking money off the table to fight Donald Trump. That is what they are planning to do more than anything else down at the state capitol, is take it to Donald Trump. That's their motivation. Jack, Wyoming, appreciate the call.
Yeah,
Look,
thank you.
Let me tell you where you can actually spend your money wisely. And that's with our friends over at Mountain High Appliance. Discover incredible savings at the Mountain High Appliance Clearance Center here in Denver. Their clearance center offers a huge selection of ranges, refrigerators, washers, dryers, and more. Save up to 60% on open box, scratch, and dent display models and overstocked appliances from Bosch, Thermador, KitchenAid, and many more. When you're looking for great deals on appliances, think Mountain High Appliance Clearance Center for the best prices and selection. Here's their address, 601 East 64th Avenue in Denver, 601 East 64th Avenue in Denver. Mountain High Appliance with their great clearance opportunities there. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's tax day, and we're talking about where all the great impact your money is going. $20 million to a Sesame Street show in Iraq. After decades of costly wars in the Middle East, Rand Paul writes, we hope to see a sober approach to assisting the region, but no, here we are. The Agency for International Development, USAID, spent $20 million on a Sesame Street show in Iraq to promote inclusion and mutual respect. Oh, okay. I got a good use of your money, all right? And it's this Easter. It's Black Eyed Pea. They've got 8 locations near you. And this Sunday, they've got a great spread for you, okay? 8 locations all along the I-25 corridor, including out in Inglewood and Lakewood. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? This Sunday is Easter. What are your plans? Make sure it includes the Easter celebration at the Black Eyed Pea. They'll be serving glazed ham dinner, brown sugar glazed ham steak served with 2 sides. Gosh, that sounds good. Or maybe you'd like the roasted turkey dinner, hand-carved turkey served with stuffing and turkey gravy. Comes with 2 sides as well. Maybe you'd like both, roasted turkey and glazed ham. That's an option too. And then there's the hand-carved prime rib, 12 ounces of slow-cooked prime rib with 2 sides. Be sure to save room for the fresh-baked cobbler served with ice cream. It's the Easter celebration on April 20th at the Black Eyed Pea. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Keep it easy on Mom, on your wife, with all the family responsibilities that come this weekend, and let them do the cooking for you and your family. And best of all, keep it in Colorado with such fresh, great food. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. All right, Bill, next hour, I want to get into this. Donald Trump now calling, finally delivering on cuts to PBS and NPR. I've wanted Republicans to do this for decades. I can't believe how hard it is to get the funding away from NPR and PBS. Donald Trump doing that call in Congress to claw back through this rescission process, $1 billion of funding to those organizations. There's no reason we should be funding them at all, period, anymore. Moving forward, this is a moment of great celebration in American history, the day we cut off funding to NPR and PBS. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I think it's dumb and misguided. I don't see the boogeyman under the bed that all the conservatives do. I don't see it.
It's $1 billion.
I know, but it's against puppets on Sesame Street and things that taught people how to help people with reading.
We need to do.
I mean, that's the idea. Yeah.
All right,
don't
Billy
teach
and
kids
I are
about
going to kick it off all next hour. Your phone calls included. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. A very happy tax day to you as you watch the money in your wallet fly out to the federal and state government for all the good work that they're doing. But this hour, Billy and I are going to get into it on PBS and NPR funding. I've been waiting decades for this to finally happen. Donald Trump calling on Congress to use the power of rescission to claw back about $1 billion of funding, not only from NPR and PBS, but then another about $8 billion or so from USAID. So good that this is finally getting the taxpayer dollars are finally getting removed from PBS and NPR? I think so. Billy disagrees, and we're going to get into this in just a moment. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.46 and sunny in Denver. Terrific tax day Tuesday. Expecting a high of 73 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, it is tax day, and DJT sitting down with Fox Noticias this morning. The question of the day, will tariffs replace taxes?
Los aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax.
You know, you're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. You know, in the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest.
That would be huge, huge. Also looking back with his productive day with President Bukele of El Salvador on Monday.
He's made it a very safe place. People go and they feel very secure and safe. He's also built one, but other also prisons, very big ones. And we're using his system because we're getting rid of our criminals from out of the United States that were allowed to come in by Biden. We're getting them out. And the president is helping us with that, President Bukele. So I was very impressed with him, really very impressed. Great guy.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Yeah, send them to El Salvador. I love it. Back to tax day and money talk. David McGarry, research director, TPA, on with Jeff and Billy last hour. How's the federal government doing with spending?
In the words of the TV show Mad Men, not great, Bob. The federal government is spending far too much on far too many things. It's involving itself far too deeply in the lives of your average American. And this is having all sorts of negative economic effects. It's having all sorts of negative cultural and political effects. And at a certain point, where the rubber meets the road is on Capitol Hill. And Congress is going to have to do something about out-of-control spending from Washington.
And 47 in conservatives hoping that begins in about a month. General Flynn, he knows DJT is in danger every day, and the globalists' agenda continues. They're trying to get him. Flynn with Benny Johnson.
I think that there are a body of people, or there is a body of people that looks at what Trump is doing with the world. Never mind the United States of America. This global competition between globalism and, frankly, nationalism or populism. And the protection of one's sovereignty, and in our case, our freedom and our constitutional republic. There's a group of people, Benny, that do not want that at all, and they were ready to move forward under, a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden, whoever was going to defeat Trump. I mean, look at what we've learned from the Social Security numbers being given to illegal immigrants in order for them to vote. I mean, so they really thought that they were going to win.
And one of those doing the bidding for the globalists is AOC. Starting to gin up the anger as the weather warms up. What a fraud and phony she is.
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud.
34 felony counts.
Liable for sexual abuse.
Abuse.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too.
Oh? Mazie Hirono.
Wait, he's manipulating it to go down? Is he hedging? What's the argument there?
All I know, Jeff, is he told 300 million people at least to go buy.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Or 300, whatever, or telling the world, go buy now. He wasn't doing it behind. He was like, let's go.
No, there's a theory. There's been a theory, though, while the tariffs have been rolled out, that, and this has been floated not in the liberal side of the aisle, on the conservative side of the aisle, that this was strategic by Donald Trump to lower the value of the dollar. That's the idea. That was what was floated.
I've heard
that this is something that was done, and
so
it was.
Is it like Soros in it, betting against it?
No, the idea is just the value. And so what would happen is if you lower the value of the dollar, then in theory we can pay off our debt at a lower amount. So that was the functionality of it, is that if you lower the value of the dollar, then the total amount of our debt then gets that was the theory behind what I heard in the past week and a half. Yeah. It's wrong. Totally wrong. Completely and totally wrong. But that's the theory.
I don't think he was doing what Nancy Pelosi was doing.
Yeah, right. Well, and I want to go back to what this is AOC saying he's manipulating the stock market as a liar and cheat. Okay.
Well, we knew it was going to fluctuate, and there were going to be, there was going to be a lot of activity on the market when the tariff thing started. So that was no secret. So anyway, here, I'll play the rest of this garbage. She's such a fool.
When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Yeah! Man, she's a horrible actress. But they believe her, those Marxist commies.
They're setting her up, man. They are absolutely setting her up right now. Get ready for 2028.
Yes.
It's going to be her.
God. Oh, man, she is dumb, too. Investigators are asking to help with locating someone who sprayed graffiti on a rock near St. Mary's Glacier. The Clear Creek County Sheriff's Office posted a picture of the rock on social media on Monday. The graffiti featured a heart with the initials JJ and MG painted in red. The sheriff's office called the act illegal and selfish, adding the graffiti is probably more permanent than their love will likely be.
That's exactly right.
That's a good one. 50-50 chance.
Tough to get that graffiti off, too.
I hate that. I hate seeing that. The White House will honor the 2024 Navy football team as they won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. That's between Army, Air Force, and Navy. Last season, the midshipmen also beat Oklahoma, their first victory over an SEC team in a bowl game since 1954. On Monday, DAT at Ohio State at the White House, national champions. And last week, North Dakota State, the FCS national champions in football. All right, we got the Clippers and the Nuggets coming up this week. Game one of the playoffs Friday, and last night the Dodgers beat the Rockies 5-3. 44 in Brighton, 45 in Littleton, 46 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Tax Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast in the Denver metro. A lot of sunshine today. Afternoon highs will hit the lower 70s. Going to be mild tonight under fair skies as well. Keeping it dry on the plains. Lows will be middle and upper 40s. Wednesday, we're going to hit the mid-70s. Daytime sunshine, but some clouds will build later in the afternoon. Wednesday night, a few light showers, otherwise partly cloudy. Lows upper 40s. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Before Jeff and I start debating the idea behind funding PBS and NPR, Donald Trump is coming for that cash. But first, I want to talk to you about a company that is changing the game in wound care here in Colorado. Yes, I know there's probably not a lot of you sitting around going, I've got this open sore in my body and I don't know what to do with it. No, but here's the idea. As you get older.
Oozing.
Yes, exactly. Oozing. And if you squeeze it, it oozes just nicely. Okay, now, here's the idea, is that as you get older, you know that those wounds that you have, those cuts, it takes a lot longer to heal. And when you have that torn skin and tissue, easy for me to say, that's great, that's a good job there. The torn skin and tissue, it's the perfect place for dirt, germs, and bacteria to get access to your body. And again, it takes longer to heal. Those chronic wounds, those diabetic ulcers, those pressure sores, can sound like a small thing that can turn into a very big deal. Jennifer Walker, who founded Wound Care Associates of Colorado, had this in her family, and she vowed that nobody else was going to have to go through the pain, suffering, and regret that her family did, because her uncle, who had some comorbidities, things like diabetes and neuropathy, had a small cut on his toe. He ignored it because he had other stuff that he was dealing with. Well, that small cut became a very big deal. It became infected, and by the time he sought medical attention, it needed to be amputated. They took part of his foot, but the infection had spread so far that it took his life a few days later. Yes, let's review that. The small cut on his toe that didn't seem to be a very big deal is what took his life. That's why if you or someone in your family is dealing with a pressure sore, a diabetic ulcer, a slow healing cut, don't mess around. It's not the time to just ignore it and see what happens, and it's definitely not the time to maintain the wound. Recently, I reached out to Wound Care Associates of Colorado for something in my own family's life, and let me tell you why. First of all, improved healing outcomes. My youngest daughter had surgery, and the wound wasn't healing properly. It was taking way too long, and as soon as the doctor mentioned the idea of maintaining the wound and keeping it clean, no, doc, the conversation ends here. We're going to fix this thing, and I'm going to do it with the best. What Wound Care Associates of Colorado promises is improved healing outcomes, plus they do the house call thing. When you set up an appointment with them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, they come to your house or your loved one's home. Yes, you don't have to worry about going and seeing mom, dad, aunt, uncle, or your friend and getting them to the office, sitting there with them, and then getting them back home. You can make the appointment, and the wound certified nurse practitioner from Wound Care Associates of Colorado visits them in the comfort, privacy, and convenience of their own home. If you or someone you know is in an assisted living center or a retirement community, this is a game changer. Nobody else in Colorado is doing it to this level and offering you that concierge service without the concierge price. Contact my friends at Wound Care Associates of Colorado. When it was an issue in my family's life, I didn't mess around. First thing I did is go to coloradowound.com and set up that appointment. coloradowound.com. If you are dealing with anything like this, go with the best. Wound Care Associates of Colorado. coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. And when you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, so here we go, Bill. $1 billion being clawed back from PBS and NPR. Donald Trump's asking Congress to do that. Now, there are a few reasons why I think that this is well overdue. Okay. Number one, it's not that big portion of their budget. Okay. For NPR, it's about 1% of their budget. For PBS, it's about 16% of their budget. And when we're $36 trillion in debt, it's just not needed. The entire economy, the entire system of media has changed to the point where government funding for PBS and NPR is just not needed. If it's so valuable, it can stand on its own. It's so clear from its own budget that it gets a majority of its funding from grants and donations. So it doesn't need it. And considering all the problems we're facing with our budget, it's an easy way to cut to benefit the American people. Now, there's plenty of examples of just weird things that NPR and PBS does with its stories that taxpayers don't need to be funding, right? And look, there's plenty of weird stuff out there in the media. We're not calling for that to end. I just don't think taxpayers should be paying for NPR to run a Valentine's Day feature on queer animals, or PBS producing a documentary for the case for reparations, or in 2023, PBS's Washington Week covering up Joe Biden's clear mental decline. NPR educated the nation on the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts and they were called the Triceratops. Why are the taxpayers paying for this? It should be out the door. Donald Trump is exactly right to finally get this done, cut the funding. Your thoughts, sir?
I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal. We're talking about $1 billion. Yeah, it's a minority of what their funding is. But the grand benefit of cutting this is about $1.50, less than $2 for the average taxpayer. Wow, such savings. That'll change nobody's life. I mean, that's barely choose. You get to pick which pack of gum you get next time you're at the store. Wow, phenomenal savings. And for me, the idea of it is those rural communities that have access to more of this information, and that was the reason it was started. Because in those smaller communities, you get out to places like the Sterling, the Dacono, you get out into Brush. The broadcast, there aren't enough customers out there to necessarily make broadcast competitive nor profitable. The access that people living in Sterling have to the number of radio stations is vastly different than what you have here in the Denver metro area. And that's simply because of economies of scale. And you can't make enough money out there necessarily to have a large number of competing radio stations. So this was part of that voice. And the idea that it started out with stuff like Reading Rainbow and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street. You had some of what we do here is based off stuff that started on, NPR, not NPR, but on PBS recently, as far as having both sides, the McNeil-Aaron News Hour, the stuff like that where they have those two sides debates. That was unique and different for the time, and nobody's doing it now anyway, outside of us. There's very few people. So Masterpiece Theater is something I grew up on. That was an exposure to the arts that many people in other situations don't necessarily have. I don't always agree with the bend of where they're going with some of their news coverage, but I don't agree with a lot of organizations' news coverages 100% of the time. I think a lot of them go off on little tiny pet projects and chase things that are important to them. And okay, fine. That's based on the news channel. I'm not willing to, based on the examples you gave, cut off the funding for PBS or NPR based on the handful of examples. I don't see that. And the thing that I value NPR for the most is they have the best, regardless of whether you agree on their political bend, they have hands down the best long form reporting on radio. Nobody even comes close in the nation to doing what they do based on their narrative reports. And many of them are outside of politics. Many of them are outside of what's going on. And so I don't see them. I know that there is this assumption that everything that NPR and PBS does is injected with a liberal bias. I don't see it a lot of the times, but that's okay. That could be part of where I sit that might be different from where you are. Because if you're much more conservative than I am, then you're going to see a lot of other things that are much more liberal, simply because of where you sit on the political spectrum. There's more stuff out there that's going to be more liberal than you are. So the chances of you interpreting it and viewing it that way, yeah, that's probably going to happen that way. But again, $1.50, $1.60, that's grand savings on tax day. Wow. That we're talking about taking away that funding, and the savings for the American is going to be about $1.50. Winning? Is that winning?
All right. Sure. You've heard both our sides. Join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Donald Trump putting out a statement yesterday afternoon. The NPR PBS grift has ripped us off for too long. Is NPR and PBS ripping off the American taxpayer? And is it time to claw that money back and end this taxpayer-funded relationship? Look, PBS and NPR can continue. It just doesn't need $1 billion from the American taxpayer. Want to hear directly from you? Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us at 720-819-5115. I want to tell you about a good use of your time and energy and support, and that's the folks at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun, but the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, and reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, the Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state. as pressure on the water system grows. It's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join up with them. All right, we'll get to phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump calling for $1 billion to be clawed back through a program that's called rescission. $1 billion of spending to NPR and PBS, and then saying no more funding moving forward. We don't need to do it. In 2024, Media Research Center pointed out that PBS's coverage of the Republican National Convention 72% negative, while coverage of the Democrat National Convention was 88% positive. Are taxpayers just funding progressive propaganda? Let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada. Joe, you ready to cut the funding?
Oh, absolutely. Public brainwashing system. Give me a break. Their idea of the left is AOC and on the right is Bernie Sanders. Give me a break. It has to be cut. I don't want to pay for this garbage. Why am I being asked to pay for the Democrat Party? Give me a break.
You're not.
Oh,
You're being
my
asked to
gosh.
pay for PBS and NPR. It's not the Democrat Party.
Oh, please. Every show you watch. I've watched everything.
Antiques Roadshow?
I do.
Okay,
I do
Joe,
watch it.
let's walk through this. Antiques Roadshow. How's that Democrat? What's the liberal thing with antiques?
Absolutely.
No, what is it? Explain it to me.
It caters to the left mindset. I mean,
Antiques?
yes, there's an occasional thing.
Antiques
Wow, I like antiques. And then all of a sudden you find basically they're all liberals on the show.
But there's no
it's
politics
not
on the show. They don't sit there and say. No, they don't sit there and go,
conservative.
this is a wonderful armoire. God, Trump sucks. This is fantastic. I think this was created right around 1850. Trump sucks. Come
Bill,
on.
it's all a
Come
bunch
on.
of people selling off their possessions to pay taxes.
They don't have to sell it. That's the idea. Is they're just
Oh,
getting
yeah.
a value. So what is that?
We can come here and move
They
to
do-
Boston,
they do Rick-
and then
they
we
do
can
Rick
go
Steves,
to
okay.
Massachusetts, and then we can eat tea and crumpets here and vote for Kamala Harris.
Okay, so
of course.
you got nothing on. Okay, so you got nothing on Antiques Roadshow. So that's not liberal. What do you got on Rick Steves? They do a lot of programs. What's Rick Steves? How's he so lib? Where's the Democrat Party in that? Because it's about travel. Where's that go?
What's it about?
Rick
You're saying
Steves. You said
trout?
you watched it. Yeah, Rick Steves program. He does a lot of guidebooks
the
and goes
traveling
around.
thing?
Yeah, how's that liberal?
The traveling thing?
Yeah, how's that
Who
liberal?
can afford to travel in this mess?
No, but
Give
how's
me a
that
break.
liberal?
The only traveling I do is on I-25 and I-70.
Elon Musk
Give
is running
me a
Doge.
break.
Doge is the richest dude on the planet, and I watched all those billionaires line up behind Donald Trump. Again, you haven't shown me that Rick Steves is liberal. Let's keep going. Waylani
Okay,
Yoga,
well,
they've got some
here,
exercise programs.
let me
How is
ask
the
you
yoga,
this
how are the,
question.
no, Joe.
Well,
how are the yoga programs liberal?
NPR did do a program about how doorway sizes are latent fat phobias.
Well, let Bezos and Zuckerbucks pay for Queer Dinosaur Hour.
But no.
Give me a break.
Bezos and Zuckerbucks are on the Trump team. Didn't you see him at the inauguration? They're standing
Oh,
right
give
behind
me a
him.
break.
Dude, they were right behind him. They were
I'm
sitting
sure
right
they're
next
just
to
trying
each other.
to shine up so
Dude,
they
they
don't
were
go
there.
to prison.
Dude, they were
They
there.
just don't want to go to prison.
No, the issue is
Zuckerbucks sold
Joe,
us out to the Chinese.
No, Joe, the issue is they just love the money. They don't care who's in power. That's it. They're just a wither vein.
That's right. They sell us out to any country.
Yeah.
You
yeah, so they're
got
not
it.
liberal. They're not liberal or
understand.
conservative. Yeah, they're not liberal or conservative. But again,
That's
we can't.
why
We don't have.
Zuckerbucks
We don't have.
should be in prison.
We don't have liberal yoga. I can see they run the BBC News. Maybe PBS NewsHour could be considered a little bit liberal. But beyond that, it's like Antiques Roadshow and other stuff about history. I mean, today Rocky Mountain PBS is running a show about the history of growing up Jewish. That's not super
Okay,
lib.
can I ask
come
you
on,
this
man.
then?
Come
Why
on.
is my money not going to America's Voice News and Steve Bannon? How come they're not sending $1 billion to Steve Bannon?
Because it's not a public broadcasting system. That's why you know that
Well,
reason.
it should be now. Let's have a vote. Let's put it to a vote.
Okay, good.
It
Put it to a vote.
Should
Go right ahead,
well,
Joe. Bring up the bill. Bring up the bill and put it in a vote. No,
My
'cause
vote is for
funding-
Steve
I know,
Bannon
but
and
the funding-
America's Voice
the
News.
funding was
Why don't you
authorized through
put a
Congress.
poll up?
The
Hey,
funding
why don't
was-
you put a poll up? Should
Right.
we fund Steve Bannon or PBS and see what happens on your station?
The funding was done through Congress. So yes, we can vote, and if you want to fund Steve Bannon, get the bill done and put it through Congress.
Well, that
yeah.
should tell
But-
you something about the previous Congress. It wasn't this
But this
Congress.
was done. This
it
was
was
done like the
way
60s, dude.
long ago.
Yeah, this is like the 60s. So and again,
I
you saw the Shunning
understand.
thing
When
that
they
was
were on
super lib.
drugs in the 60s, I get it. What do you not get? This is a waste of space.
No, the waste here is that you haven't shown anything super lib. I mean, Jeff's brought up a handful of broadcasts, but over the course of a broadcast week,
all you have to do is watch. All you have to do is watch PBS NewsHour.
Dude,
watch PBS NewsHour.
I gave
it's
you their
all
broadcast
lefty
schedule.
garbage.
I gave you their broadcasting schedule, and the only thing we've been able to show out is PBS NewsHour, which is an hour.
In
that is 60 minutes
2021,
out of 24
NPR
hours.
lamented that animals deserve pronouns too. Look, if most of the
But
stuff's
we give our animals
funded,
pronouns. Who cares?
They
We give our
just-
animals pronouns. We refer to them as he and all the time. I mean, come on, this is just
All
silly.
you have to do is ask the American people. Put it to a vote, a referendum.
Well, I mean,
should we pay for PBS? No.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because at the beginning of March, there was a poll that was done, and the vast majority of Americans supported it. It was only 25%.
Well, who was it? Who was the poll done by?
There it is. It's not the right poll because it didn't tell me what Joe said.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
that's it.
It
I
was
get it,
done
Joe.
by
If it's the one that Joe likes, then it's a decent poll. I get it, Joe.
It
Yes,
was
I know
done
how
by
it is.
PBS,
I know.
right?
Yes, I know, Joe. That's how it works.
1%. It's 1%.
If you agree with it, it's right. If you don't, it's wrong.
1% of NPR's funding, 16% of PBS. If people really care so much, they're welcome to fund it. We're not saying that they can just taxpayers with a $36 trillion
Joe was talking
in debt.
about a vote.
Cut that.
Recent poll showed only 25% of the people involved in the poll wanted to cut the funding.
Well, they can give their own money
There's
to
your
it,
vote.
but this
Yeah, thanks
is
for the call, Joe.
not
Appreciate it.
necessary. Joe, great call. Sure, appreciate it. That's a lot of fun. All right. A
That was a
good
lot of
use of your money. Are you ready to transform your kitchen or bathroom into a stunning masterpiece? Look no further than the Art of Granite with it's your premier destination for exquisite granite, marble, and quartz countertops. For over 15 years, Mitch Floria, owner of the Art of Granite, has been crafting and installing custom countertops, fireplaces, showers, and more. Their team of experts will guide you through the selection process, ensuring you find the perfect stone to match your style and budget. Visit their showroom in Golden or browse their online inventory at theartofgranite.com. Discover the endless possibilities for your home renovation project. All you got to do, listen to this, mention KNUS and get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Mention KNUS for those exclusive savings and transform your kitchen or bathroom dreams into a reality with theartofgranite.com. All right, Bill, Rick Denver. All right, Rick Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Yeah, clear back in, I guess it was 73. They had a series called An American Family. It went on for the whole year. It was just terrible. It was a documentary kind of thing of the Loud family of Southern California, making them kind of famous. Did you ever remember it?
I remember the program, but I didn't watch it much, and it was one of the first forays of things like reality television, far beyond Mark Burnett.
Well, it was just a waste of money, man. The film they shot for that, they had a great budget on it, but it was the biggest bore. It was about this white middle-class family that was surviving in private enterprise. They were in construction. They were always busy all the time. But it was in the first days of the Great Society programs, and that's the way they got that over. I happened to be in school at the time and was watching it. And I quit watching them. And then remember Dick Cavett?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, but, man, he was kind of a blasé guy, and they carried on with that for far too long, too, I thought.
Yeah, I liked Mr. Rogers. I liked Reading Rainbow. I watched all that stuff as a kid. That type of content I don't have a problem with. But
yeah, Fred Rogers was good.
Study has shown over and over again that the news coverage that comes from PBS and NPR is radically progressive. All right, I don't have a problem. MSNBC is that way. Why are taxpayers paying for this? With $36 trillion in debt, they can raise their money in other ways. And if PBS wants to go even more progressive, they can. Embrace your progressive-ness, PBS and NPR. Just don't do it with taxpayer dollars.
Well, the amount of money they spent on film stock in those days, and it was before the electronics, when film was really in, it was in black and white. But it was just a big. They spent a lot of money on that film, and I thought the series went nowhere. It was kind of a big bore for the middle class to watch. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Rick,
Thanks.
great call. Sure appreciate it. Rick's line will be open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Scott in Littleton. Good morning, Scott. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, Bill. You're missing out. Now you got Work It Out Wombats on.
Oh, yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, there you go. Zadie to the Rescue, Cake Mistake. Starring Mia, Swami, Nathan, whatever. I like UFC, fighting. Why don't you pay for that? Why do I got to pay for your Masterpiece Theater?
What was the reason that the NPR and PBS were created?
You know what it is with you liberals? If you want to pay for this garbage...
Not necessarily liberal. I'm unaffiliated, sir, but that's okay.
Tax bracket for you people. You should have a separate tax bracket.
You people.
Just for you people, you liberals that like
I'm
this
not a liberal,
garbage.
Man.
And you don't have any trouble watching or paying for garbage.
Dude, I'm not a liberal.
That Doge is found... that PBS has.
What has Doge found?
Then you pay
stop
for
right there.
Have a separate tax bracket.
Scott, what is Doge found? Scott, we're gonna stop right there. What has Doge found? What has Doge found?
You know what?
What has Doge found? Scott, what has Doge found?
If you had to itemize the taxes you pay, if you went every other Friday and they had a list of all the taxes that you're going to pay, you liberals would turn around and go,
liberals,
"Oh my
there we go
God,
again."
I'm paying for this."
Scott, you know what
crap.
you're talking about, man. You don't have any idea what you're talking
I
about.
do know what I'm talking about.
No, you don't, man. You keep calling me a liberal. Dude, you keep calling me a
Everything's
liberal. You have no idea, man. You have no clue what you're talking about. You don't have a single clue.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you're a communist. I don't know what the hell you are.
Sure.
But,
okay, not what the hell I
you
am.
know,
Okay.
But,
how long have you been listening to the show, Scott? How long, man? How long have you been listening to the show,
I think you're
Scott?
A con artist.
How long have you been listening to the show, man?
Con artist.
So
And
it's
you
a personal
do
thing. Okay, you just don't like me.
Not anyone with as many kids as you do would want all this garbage.
Guess how many kids Jeff has, my friend? Same as I do. 4.
Nice
job. No, he hung up on us. He hung up. I didn't hang up on him. He hung up. He hung up on us. Nice job there, Scott.
All right.
Good job.
It is spicy as we debate NPR and
That wasn't a debate. He
PBS.
sat there and he just called me names and kept asking him
You
stuff.
communist.
It's ridiculous. I mean, dude, how long have you listened to the show?
Does supporting
How long
NPR
have
and
you
PBS
listened?
make you a communist?
Not even close. That is just stupid. That is stupid because if it does, then that means that England's communist because they spend more money on public broadcasting. They spend about $100 a person on public broadcasting. Are they communist? No, they're not communist. But we wouldn't be that stupid. The issue is this, that someone like Scott calls up and uses the word communist as a pejorative, as if he's trying to hurt my feelings. Oh, you're a communist. That is not even the worst thing I've been called today, Scott. You should see the text messages I get that are full of 4-letter filthy words. Yeah. I mean, seriously. You want to come in here? We can have a conversation, Scott, but all you were doing is calling names. It was embarrassing.
All right, phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. And the text line where you can use your 4-letter expletives is
mostly at me.
720-819-5115. Although there is quite an admirer in there. In the text
I got a handful, but that's okay.
720-819-5115.
Everyone else hopes I die in a fire.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Is that smoke?
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy and I debating whether or not there should be cuts to funding for NPR, PBS. It's tax day. Trump's calling for Congress to claw back $1 billion from those two through a program called rescission. And I think he should. Billy's saying no, and the text messages are hot. The phone lines are full. 8422 going, guys, you're turning your show into the Jerry Springer Show.
Jerry.
Yeah,
I would need somebody to hit him with a chair. That's what we need.
Iggy's
They're gonna hit me.
I love you a long time, Bill.
Iggy, you're the best.
7586, Bill, you're an illegal alien. Deport Bill now.
There are times my parents wanted to do that.
2247, I like PBS. I'm selective about what I watch. However, I never listen to NPR anymore because I'm listening to KNUS.
Oh,
Boom.
that's great. Oh, that's fantastic.
2247, you're awesome.
Thank you so much.
8993, great show, guys. If we are to support any radio program with tax dollars, we need to support all of the listener-supported Christian stations. Put your money where your mouth is, Janice.
That's interesting.
Interesting there. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Gene in Fort Morgan. Good morning, Gene. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Hello. So my take on it's a couple things. For PBS, I love Masterpiece. I've watched Masterpiece forever. But the problem is it's not free anymore. You have to either get a subscription like Hulu, or if you're on like Amazon Prime, you have to pay for those. You have to buy subscriptions to it, so it's not free. So we subsidize it, plus we have to pay for it. So that's something that I don't find. I mean,
now, got a question. Gene, got a question for you. Now, is there a PBS broadcasting station that you could receive, like, over-the-air old-school rabbit ears out there in the Morgan area?
Not that I've seen. I don't think they're strong enough of a signal.
Wow, that would be interesting because it should be. Because that is the deal that was crafted early on, that, over-the-air broadcast, without having to do cable or anything else, that the PBS stations were going to be able to provide that reach, and it was in exchange for the federal funding. That was the entire purpose behind them, because the PBS broadcasting TV stations are supposed to cover 99% of the contiguous U.S. States, because it was one of the ways that they got an EAS signal, an emergency signal, across the country. It was the only single-band TV broadcast channel that was available at the time for them to do that. So, yeah, I would be curious, because, you should be able to get 6 out there, I think, at that time, but I don't know.
I've got a mother-in-law in Johnstown, and she doesn't get PBS on her rabbit ears.
Oh, that's interesting. You're
pretty
opening up a whole other can of worms.
247, 31. They get Ion and stuff like that, but it's one of those things that, you put on the wall.
Yeah.
And so you get all the local stuff, and Johnstown's not very far from Denver,
No,
but
not
I
at all.
don't remember being able to get PBS there ever.
Now, that's interesting.
Now,
That's interesting, Gene, because I would say that if they are not getting that coverage area, if it's not available in places like Morgan and Johnstown, then I'm actually more amenable to cutting the funding. And if you have to pay a subscription service like Amazon Prime or Hulu in order to get access to those PBS programming, I agree that absolutely at that point when you are paying extra in order to get the publicly funded TV, yes, then the funding should be cut. If they are not fulfilling their broadcast licenses, and if it's not available elsewhere in Colorado and around the rest of the contiguous U.S. states like they are supposed to be, how it was created, then I'd yank their funding. Yeah.
Gene,
Greg. So that's can I have one other quick comment?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I used to listen to NPR, but I don't anymore. The early 2000s is when I quit. And the reason is this. I lived in Greeley, and I was part of a service club called Exchange Club, and we did what's called a healing field. So 2 years after 9/11, we put up one flag for every person who was killed September 11th.
Wow.
And the Greeley NPR station did a wonderful show on it, and they won a national award for their coverage of it. And then 2 years after that, we did we took the same flags and we put them up, one for every soldier, sailor, Marine, airman that had been killed since September 11th. And they would not cover that. And I was a part of the PR team, and I literally, because I used to sell office supplies to them a long time ago, I went in and talked to my contact. I'm like, what's the problem? And they're like, well, now it's political. We aren't going to cover it because too many people oppose the war. And so that's when I stopped listening because I was like, well, you know, I'm not going to sign for that one.
I would agree with you on that one, Gene.
Those are my 2 cents.
I'd agree with you on that one because I'm of the opinion that when the politics is going against it, that is exactly the time in which you are supposed to cover it, because that is the time in which you need the light the most at that point. So I would agree with you, and I do think that the many times the NPR news coverage can get a little bit slanted. I've been really critical about their coverage between, a little bit, not all the time, but a little bit. And I've been very critical of their Israel-Hamas coverage inside of the war. I think they've been very, very slanted towards the Palestinian-Hamas side, and I've been very disappointed in what they have the ability to do. Very disappointed in what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single Republican in their newsroom. The entire thing is slanted. Great call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Eva, Denver. Good morning, Eva. You're on with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hi there. I just wanted to speak to that one fellow that called in and was claiming that there's liberalism injected into the neutral shows, but on PBS and such. And I would disagree with that. I would say the way they've gone about this mass global actual mind control is more insidious than that. They have the neutral shows that are very enjoyable, the British, all these other exciting things, and then they will slide in the liberalism and Svengoolie the people with the black magic into believing that it's neutral based on all the other neutral stuff around it. And they've been doing this with everything. And I just wanted to make that comment. If once you wake up, you can see it. You can see it on the geography channels where they slide in. Everything is great. And then you pick up on a little bit of global, the ice caps and global warming. They slip it in. It's an agenda-driven
throughout PBS and NPR, Bill. Mind control.
Yeah, I don't go quite that far. Thanks for the call, Eva. I appreciate it. Sorry, we're running out of time.
We try mind control here.
I wish it works. You're going to have more listeners. Keep trying, though.
Yeah. So Billy and I are live in person tomorrow at the IHOP in Lakewood. Don't miss that. If you missed any part of this show or you want details on tomorrow's live broadcast, go to 710knus.com. You've been listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.